Chapter 726. The eruption of conflict. A series of cracking noises could be heard echoing throughout the square, soaring into the sky. At this moment, the 10th wall of fire completely collapsed in front of everyone's eyes, turning into countless sparks. Silence. Whether it was the crowd below the square or the 8 elders on the high platform, they all fell into a tacit silence. The 10-fist wall of fire was divided into 10 layers, and each layer was harder and more terrifying than the previous one. Master Yanhua was the most outstanding genius of the Arcane Guild. Even Master Yanhua could only break the 7th wall of fire. However, this young man named Zhuowen not only surpassed Master Yanhua, but he also broke the 8th, 9th, and even the 10th wall of fire. The 10-fist wall of fire was broken through by Jun. Oh my god! The 10th wall of fire was also broken through? Who is this young man? How can he be so terrifying? This young man is definitely a 5th-grade arcanist, or else he wouldn't be able to break through the 10-fist wall of fire. 5th-grade arcanist? This young man is only in his 20s, and he's already a 5th-grade arcanist at such a young age? What a terrifying talent. After a long period of silence, there was an uproar in the surrounding square. It was like thunder that resounded throughout the entire square. On the high platform, the eyes of the 8 great elders were also staring intently at Zhuowen. Their eyes were filled with fervent heat. The Zhuowen in front of them was definitely a genius, a monstrous genius. This kind of genius was more than qualified to become an elder of the Arcane Guild. Elder Glaze frowned, especially when he noticed the expressions of the other 7 elders and the surrounding crowd. His face also darkened. However, now that the results of the 10-fist wall of fire were out, as the host, he naturally had to speak. Your name is Zhuowen, right? Your talent is not bad. There aren't many young people who can break through the 10-fist wall of fire. You're a rare genius. According to the rules of the elder election, you've won the final victory. In the future, you'll be the 10th elder of the Arcane Guild. At this point, Elder Glaze suddenly turned to the stunned Master Yanhua and shouted, Yanhua, come back. I don't blame you for losing this time. Go back and cultivate well. When you advance to rank 5, you can still become an elder. When Elder Lu Li said this, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. However, he was sneering in his heart. This Elder Lu Li had a good plan. He hadn't settled his bet with Grandmaster Yanhua yet, but Elder Lu Li actually wanted Grandmaster Yanhua to leave first. This move was clearly intended to renege on the debt. The surrounding people also understood Elder Lu Li's actions. They discussed spiritedly, but no one refuted her. Elder Glaze was the 2nd elder of the Arcane Guild. She held a high position and was very powerful. No one dared to offend her. Naturally, no one would speak up for Zhuowen. When Grandmaster Yanhua heard this, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. He cupped his hands at Elder Lu Li as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He actually planned to walk towards Elder Lu Li. Whoosh! A piercing sound could be heard, causing Grandmaster Yanhua's expression to change. He quickly turned around and countless black flames rushed out from his body, forming a wall of black flames in front of him. Rumble! The piercing sound instantly reached the wall of black flames. Grandmaster Yanhua only felt a huge force coming towards him. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. He glared at Zhuowen, who was not far away. At this moment, Yuan slowly walked over with a bone spear in his hand. His gaze was incomparably cold. You want to leave? You'd better leave an arm behind first. Zhuowen's indifferent voice slowly rang out. Presumptuous! You actually dare to make a move in front of me. Are you not putting me in your eyes? Elder Lu Li suddenly shouted as she stared coldly at Zhuowen. The veins on her forehead bulged. This Zhuowen was too presumptuous. He actually dared to make a move in front of her. Presumptuous? How am I presumptuous? Grandmaster Yanhua publicly reneged on the debt. That's the real presumptuous. And you, why should I put you in my eyes? Zhuowen turned around and shouted as well. His words didn't have the slightest scruple. This Elder Lu Li had been targeting him from the start. Naturally, Zhuowen wouldn't show him any respect. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding people were shocked. This Zhuowen was too presumptuous. He actually dared to contradict Elder Lu Li, Good, good, good. It's been a long time since someone dared to speak to me like this. Kid, you're really courting death. Elder Lu Li shouted angrily. His wrinkled face was filled with malevolence. As the second elder of the Arcane Art Guild, he had a high position and authority. No one had ever dared to speak to him like this. Now, not only did someone say it, but it was also a junior. Where could Elder Lu Li put his old face? If he didn't get rid of this kid, where would his dignity as the second elder be? Like father, like son. You're not a good old man either. Today, your son's arm will be severed. Zhuan coldly snorted. He took a step forward and rushed towards Grandmaster Yanhua. His speed was extremely fast. Little bastard, how dare you? Elder Glaze let out a cold snort and directly attacked Zhuan. Her skinny right hand reached out, and a terrifying mental energy slapped out toward Zhuan. Umph! In the face of Elder Lu Li's crushing mental strength, Zhuan didn't dodge at all. He continued to rush towards Grandmaster Yanhua. Is this kid courting death? He actually ignored Elder Lu Li's attack. Looking at Zhuan's crazy action, the surrounding people were astonished. Elder Lu Li was a 5th grade Great Perfection Arcanist. His mental strength was extremely terrifying. This Zhuan was simply courting death. At the moment when Elder Lu Li's mental strength approached, Zhuan twisted his waist and similarly, the 5th grade Great Perfection's mental strength poured out. Rumble! The two mental strengths collided and instantly exploded into countless sparks. Then they were annihilated at the same time. Zhuan didn't stop and continued to rush towards Grandmaster Yanhua. What? Elder Lu Li's mental strength was broken? This kid's mental strength has also reached the 5th grade Great Perfection? When the two mental strengths collided in midair and were annihilated at the same time, everyone was shocked. Zhuan, a young man who wasn't famous in their eyes, actually blocked Elder Lu Li's mental strength and annihilated it. This was too terrifying. At this moment, Grandmaster Yanhua's face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear. When Zhuan broke through the 10 fists firewall, he knew that Zhuan's mental strength had already reached the 5th grade. In addition, when he annihilated Elder Lu Li's mental strength, he was even more certain that the Zhuan in front of him was a 5th grade Great Perfection Arcanist. He didn't have the confidence to fight against such an existence. Grandmaster Yanhua. Previously, I said that I would pay you a visit another day. Today I am here. Why are you retreating again and again? Zhuan arrived in an instant. His voice was like thunder and filled with sarcasm. Zhuan, don't think that I'm really afraid of you. Grandmaster Yanhua's eyes were gloomy. Instantly, countless black flames burst out. These black flames gathered and turned into countless black flame arrows. Black flame sky explosion. As soon as the black flame arrows were formed, they immediately turned into countless black rain curtains that shot toward Zhuan. The power of the black flame sky explosion is indeed terrifying. However, I am different today. Your black flame sky explosion is no longer of much use to me. Zhuan smiled indifferently. The aura of a peak ultimate 7-wheel emperor surged out of his body like a volcano erupting. It formed countless terrifying cyclones on the surface of his body. Following which, Yun shook the bone spear in his right hand. A terrifying spear intent erupted and formed countless blue spear shadows. These spear shadows were like wriggling tadpoles and rushed towards the countless black flame arrows. Boom, boom, boom. What surprised everyone was that the imposing black flame sky explosion was completely suppressed by Zhuan's spear intent. In an instant, the countless black flame arrows were completely annihilated. So, Zhuan stomped his foot and instantly passed by Grandmaster Yanhua. A severed arm suddenly soared into the sky, dripping with fresh blood as it fell to the ground. Grandmaster Yanhua instantly howled miserably. He held his severed right arm and howled miserably. His voice was extremely mournful. When he looked at Zhuan, his eyes were filled with hatred. The miserable howl attracted the attention of the surrounding people. When they saw that Grandmaster Yanhua's arm had been severed, they were all shocked. What a ruthless person. He said that he would sever Grandmaster Yanhua's arm, and he really did it. The youth before them was young, but his methods were extremely ruthless and merciless. This kind of person was the worst to provoke. Once provoked, the outcome would be very miserable. Father, save me. Kill this bastard. Grandmaster Yen Hua held his empty right arm and howled miserably. Blood flowed out from his severed arm like a faucet. He quickly begged Elder Lu Li for help. When Elder Lu Li, who was in the air, heard Grandmaster Yen Hua's miserable howl, his body trembled. His eyes were filled with a towering rage. Zhuan was too despicable. He actually dared to sever Grandmaster Yen Hua's arm. Little bastard. I want you to die. I want you to die an ugly death. Elder Lu Li roared and dashed toward Zhuowen. In an instant, he was above Zhuowen's head. His skinny right hand dipped down again, and his terrifying mental power transformed into countless mental storms, crushing down. Jun had a cold smile on his face. He stomped on the ground and instantly grabbed Grandmaster Yen Hua, who was rolling on the ground in pain. He lifted him up and faced Elder Lu Li's attack in the air. Pu Chi! The mental energy storm was extremely fast. It instantly arrived below. Grandmaster Yen Hua's miserable howl stopped abruptly as a bloody mist exploded. Grandmaster Yen Hua was actually killed by this mental energy storm. The moment Grandmaster Yen Hua died, Yun formed a hand seal and 3 pairs of lightning wings unfurled. He instantly turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared. Rumble! That horrifying mental energy ruthlessly struck the place where Zhuan was standing. The ground cracked and countless rocks floated up. It was a spectacular sight. You actually killed Grandmaster Yen Hua. You little bastard. Little bastard. Elder Lu Li never expected that Zhuan would use Grandmaster Yen Hua as a shield. He did not hold back in his attack at all. When the mental energy storm reached Grandmaster Yen Hua, it was already impossible for Elder Lu Li to withdraw his hand. Just like that, Elder Lu Li could only watch as Grandmaster Yen Hua died before him. Did I kill him? Grandmaster Yen Hua clearly died under your attack. You are the one who killed your son. Chapter 727. 9 Dragons' Demise. Elder Lu Li's face was filled with malevolence. It was all because of this bastard that Yen Hua had died in front of him. Furthermore, he had killed Yen Hua. Elder Lu Li's eyes were filled with killing intent. The grudge of his son's death was irreconcilable. Today, I will definitely kill you. Elder Lu Li roared angrily. With a shake of his sleeve, 9 ink-black crystals gushed out and scattered around Elder Lu Li's body. Waves of ink-black mist gushed out from the crystals. A series of dragon roars suddenly spread throughout the entire square. Then, the 9 clouds of fog actually shrank and changed shape, turning into 9 huge dragons. The flood dragon was vivid and lifelike. Its cold scales reflected a frightening cold light, and the cold teeth it revealed were filled with the smell of blood. 9 dragons' demise? When the 9 dragons appeared, everyone in the square cried out in surprise. Even the expressions of the other 7 elders on the high platform changed. The 9 dragons' demise was a grade 5 origin array that Elder Lu Li had kept for many years. Its power was extremely terrifying. It was said that the 9 black crystals that made up the 9 flood dragons' demise were refined from the blood essence of a flood dragon in the deep sea. The souls of the flood dragons were also fused into them. Once activated, 9 flood dragon souls could be released. The 9 dragons' demise was Elder Lu Li's trump card. He never expected that he would use it right from the start. Evidently, Elder Lu Li was determined to kill Zhuan. That accompany Yen Hua in death. Elder Lu Li sneered as he extended his skinny hand. Instantly, the 9 dragons roared as they flew towards Zhuan. You're not the only one with a grade 5 origin array. I have one too. Zhuan wasn't afraid as he waved his right hand. Instantly, rays of chilling light flew out from his spiritual ring and formed a massive sword array around him. It was the Greater Everlasting Sword Array. Another grade 5 origin array. I didn't expect this one to also possess the Greater Limitless Sword Array. What a terrifying fellow. Looking at Zhuan, who had summoned the Greater Limitless Sword formation, everyone could not help but be stunned. It seemed that this one was not someone to be trifled with. The 2 of them would definitely have a fierce battle this time. The 9 dragons arrived in an instant. Their huge bodies were like whips as they whipped toward Zhuan, who was in the middle of the greater infinite sword formation. Thud thud thud. The immense power slammed into the greater infinite sword formation, causing it to tremble violently. The power of the 9 dragons was indeed terrifying. Even the greater infinite sword formation was on the verge of collapse. Weeping blood style. After retreating a few tens of steps, Zhuan abruptly stopped his figure, then he formed a sword seal and executed the first sword move of the greater limitless sword formation, the blood weep style. Instantly, a rain of blood fell around the greater infinity sword formation. The dense rain of blood turned into bloody light that shot towards the 9 serpents. Boom, boom, boom. The bloody light and the serpents collided once again in the void. The terrifying power exploded, causing the surrounding space to collapse. Looking at the terrifying collision in the void, the faces of the people below were filled with shock. The collision between complete Grade 5 Arcana Masters was too terrifying. They knew very well that if they were to get a little closer to such a terrifying collision, they would definitely be seriously injured. Little bastard, I'll make sure you die a horrible death today. Elder Lu Li shouted. His hands suddenly formed a seal as he muttered, 9 serpents transforming into dragons. Suddenly, the 9 serpents in the void twisted their huge bodies and let out shrill cries. Within their dark bodies, there was a faint trace of golden light, and a terrifying pressure slowly flowed out. Transforming into dragons, they would transform into real dragons that soared above the 9 heavens. Their power would increase by a few times. Oh no, I have to stop these 9 serpents. Looking at the 9 serpents that were slowly transforming, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He could feel the terror of these 9 serpents. If they were to transform successfully, they would become very difficult to deal with. Yin-yang style. With a cold shout, Zhuowen formed another sword seal. The greater infinity sword formation in the void changed again. Above the sword formation, there was a pattern of yin-yang infinity. The huge sword formation was divided into 2 areas. The left side was filled with darkness, while the right side was dazzling white. Yin-yang infinity was terrifying. Boom! The greater infinity sword formation that was divided into yin and yang suddenly fell down and heavily hit the 9 serpents. Suddenly, the 9 serpents that were still in the process of transforming were smashed to the ground by the sword formation. The terrifying power had directly killed 4 of the serpents. As for the remaining 5 serpents, 3 of them were seriously injured, while the other 2 were much lighter. Kill them. Zhuowen's eyes were cold and emotionless. He pressed down with his right hand and the greater infinity sword formation was divided into yin and yang, crushing the remaining 5 serpents below. Zhuowen's action immediately shocked Elder Lu Li. The serpents had yet to transform completely. If Zhuowen were to kill them in the cradle, everything he had done before would be in vain. I can only sacrifice the pawns to protect the chariot. A ruthless glint flashed across Elder Lu Li's eyes. She knew that it was impossible to completely protect the remaining 5 flood dragons. As long as one of them could successfully transform into a dragon, she would have a chance to turn the tables. Block it. With that thought, Elder Lu Li immediately controlled the remaining 5 serpents. The 3 that were seriously injured broke through the air and flew towards the yin-yang sword formation that was slashing down from the sky. Boom! Under Elder Lu Li's command, the 3 serpents tried their best to block the yin-yang sword formation. Puchi! Unfortunately, the 3 serpents were too seriously injured and could not block it for long. After 5 breaths, they shattered and turned into endless blood mist. The yin-yang sword formation was unstoppable. It continued to sweep towards the 2 serpents below, wanting to completely kill them. Damn it! Just a little more time and the 2 serpents will complete their transformation. Seeing the yin-yang sword formation continue to sweep over, Elder Lu Li's face was extremely gloomy. He looked at one of the 2 serpents below and gritted his teeth. He could only control the serpent to continue blocking the yin-yang sword formation. The serpent was about to transform into a dragon. The dark scales on its body were glowing with a dazzling golden light, like countless small suns. It was extremely gorgeous. Unfortunately, the serpent had not completely transformed. Only part of its body had transformed. Its head and tail were still black. Boom! The yin-yang sword formation hit the serpent and there was a sound of metal clashing. The body of the serpent that was about to transform into a dragon was extremely powerful. However, the serpent did not have it easy either. The power of the yin-yang sword formation was beyond imagination. The serpent's internal organs were in pain as if they were on fire. Crush it! Zhuowen snorted. The yin-yang sword formation buzzed and the yin-yang pattern suspended above it suddenly rotated at a high speed. Its power soared several times and it hit the serpent again. Finally, the scales on the serpent's body broke. Pale golden blood spurted out and formed a dazzling fountain in the air. Destroy! The yin-yang sword formation attacked again, instantly slicing hundreds of times. The Jiao dragon wailed at the sky, and its huge body was split into hundreds of pieces. The whole sky was filled with golden blood, and it looked extremely glorious. Then, I will make you die miserably. The 9 serpents were basically killed by Zhu. There was only one left. Elder Lu Li almost went crazy. Transformed serpent into a dragon. With a roar, the remaining serpent bellowed and its body emitted countless golden rays. It finally shed its serpent body and became a real dragon. The dark scales were all replaced by golden ones. On the huge dragon head, 2 dragon horns that were several feet tall grew out and breathed out terrifying clouds and mist. The soul of a real dragon. The golden real dragon in front of him was the soul of a real dragon transformed from a serpent's soul. The terrifying pressure that it emitted made Zhuowen's face change. What a terrifying real dragon! After the serpent had completely transformed into a real dragon, Elder Lu Li's face became much paler and even a little weak. This secret method of transforming a serpent into a real dragon required a lot of mental energy. Even though he was a complete grade 5 Arcana master, he still felt a little uncomfortable using this secret method. Zhuowen, you're dead. The soul of a real dragon is much more powerful than the 9 serpents' downfall. Just wait for your death. Elder Lu Li laughed, his face full of malevolence. The golden dragon soared into the sky and waved its huge dragon claws, instantly hitting the yin-yang sword formation. It actually made the yin-yang sword formation retreat hundreds of steps. The yin-yang pattern above the yin-yang sword formation became much dimmer. What a terrifying soul of a real dragon! Zhuowen whispered in shock and anger. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and hurriedly stopped the yin-yang sword formation that was retreating. Countless cold lights shot out and the sword formation once again surrounded his body. Elder Lu Li's 9 serpents' downfall is already very terrifying. The soul of a real dragon produced by transforming a serpent into a real dragon is even more terrifying. Vin is in for it. Looking at the huge golden dragon that soared into the sky, everyone in the square was moved. Obviously, the power of the soul of a real dragon that suddenly appeared was beyond their expectations. Soul of a real dragon? Ha! The heavens are really helping this dragon lord. This Elder Lu Li is really interesting. He actually spent a lot of mental energy to transform a serpent into a soul of a real dragon. Ha! Just as Zhuowen stared at the soul of a real dragon in front of him with a grave expression, Xiao Hei's wretched voice suddenly sounded in his mind. This thing is useful to you? Zhuowen asked with a strange expression. Nonsense. This dragon lord is a noble member of the dragon clan. Although the soul of a real dragon is of low quality, it is a great supplement for this dragon lord. Last time I met a beast spirit, and now I've met the soul of a real dragon. This dragon lord is really lucky during this period. Xiao Hei laughed. You can swallow the soul of a real dragon? Zhuowen's eyes lit up. Of course, this low-quality dragon can't be compared to this dragon lord. Watch how I deal with it. Chapter 728. Elder Shun looking at the real dragon's soul in the sky, Elder Lu Li's smile bloomed like a chrysanthemum. The real dragon transformed from a serpent dragon was definitely much more powerful than the 9 serpent soul. Even if there was only one real dragon, it was still much more powerful than the 9 serpent soul. You're dead meat this time. Staring at Yun, Elder Lu Li's eyes were filled with viciousness. Not only had Zhuowen disrespected him, but he had also killed his son. If he did not get rid of him, he would not be able to rest easy. Everyone in the square shook their heads and sighed. They knew how powerful the real dragon's soul was. Zhuowen would not be able to contend against it, even if the latter was a complete grade 5 arcana master. In the sky, the real dragon's soul stared at Zhuowen indifferently. With a roar, it charged toward Zhuowen. Zhuowen, who was floating in front of the real dragon's soul, stood quietly without any movement. His eyelids were slightly lowered as if he did not care about the real dragon's soul that was charging toward him. Is Zhuowen courting death? Looking at the indifferent Zhuowen, everyone in the square was puzzled. Although the real dragon's soul was powerful, it was not to the extent that it would be so frightened that it did not dare to move, right? Is he really a coward? Is he scared just like that? Elder Lu Li's face was filled with mockery as he sneered. Just as everyone thought that Zhuowen was about to be devoured by the real dragon's soul, a ray of black light suddenly shot out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows and charged toward the real dragon's soul. Following that, a shrill scream suddenly rang out in the sky. Everyone looked up and was shocked to find that the real dragon's soul, which was originally imposing, had suddenly stopped moving. Following that, it started to roll violently in the sky. It looked as if it was in extreme pain. If someone were to observe carefully, they would discover that the surface of the true dragon soul was covered in dense ink-black threads. These threads were very thin and dense, making them difficult to detect. Furthermore, the fine black lines continued to expand, as if they were absorbing the power of the true dragon soul and expanding continuously. What's going on? Why is the true dragon's soul suddenly rolling? Elder Lu Li's face stiffened as he stared gloomily at the true dragon's soul that was constantly rolling and howling. When he wanted to control the true dragon's soul, he had been blocked by a mysterious power. Could this energy have been released by Zhuowen? Raising her head, Elder Lu Li's gaze finally landed on the young man who was floating in midair with his eyelids slightly drooping. Just now, when the true dragon soul was about to devour Zhuowen, such a strange situation suddenly happened. Elder Lu Li did not believe that such a thing happening to the true dragon soul had nothing to do with Zhuowen. Zhuowen, what did you do to the true dragon soul? Elder Lu Li could not help but roar. Zhuowen glanced indifferently at Elder Lu Li and said indifferently, "If you want to know, then come up and see for yourself." As soon as he said that, Elder Lu Li fell silent. Her gaze was fixed on Zhuowen, but she did not dare to go up. The true dragon's soul was so powerful, but such a strange situation had occurred. How could she dare to go up? What? You don't dare? What a coward. What's the difference between you and that trash, Yanhua? You don't even dare to come up. You're indeed the second elder of the Arcane Guild. Zhuowen's mocking words rolled over from the sky, causing Elder Lu Li's expression to turn extremely ugly. Everyone in the square stared at Elder Lu Li with strange gazes. They did not expect Elder Lu Li to be afraid. What surprised them even more was the true dragon's soul that was constantly rolling in the sky. Now, even a fool could see that the true dragon soul's abnormality was definitely related to Zhuowen. Suddenly, the true dragon's soul roared to the sky. Then, its golden body was shrouded by countless ink-black mist and was instantly corroded. Even its corpse did not exist. The ink-black mist rolled in the void, then turned into a ray of black light and re-entered between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Henceforth, the true dragon's soul had completely fallen in front of Zhuowen. The true dragon's soul was killed just like that? Everyone in the square still felt that it was unreal. They really could not imagine that the true dragon's soul, which was so imposing just a moment ago, was killed so easily. It was really a big surprise. Xiao He, how was it? As soon as Xiao He returned to the sea of consciousness, Zhuowen hurriedly asked. I'm so full. The energy of this true dragon soul is more abundant than that of the beast spirit. It has replenished this dragon lord's origin. Xiao He chuckled. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. Xiao He's expression was so excited. It was likely that he had obtained quite a lot of benefits. Now, it's time to settle the old score with Elder Lu Li. As he spoke, Zhuowen's gaze fell on Elder Lu Li, who was already in a daze. The corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile. With the true dragon's soul destroyed, Elder Lu Li seemed to have lost his soul. There was even a trace of regret in his eyes. He also did not expect that the young man in front of him, who he had not taken seriously at the beginning, would actually have such terrifying strength. If he had chosen to let Yen Hua cut off one of his arms, perhaps these unbearable things would not have happened. Sush. In an instant, Yin arrived in front of Elder Lu Li. Terrifying mental energy poured out, and the infinite sword formation surrounding him immediately turned into rays of cold light that shot towards Elder Lu Li. Damn it. Elder Lu Li's expression changed drastically when he saw the countless rays of cold light rushing over. With a shake of his sleeve, terrifying mental energy gushed out and formed a mental energy wall that was several feet thick in front of him. Ding ding ding. Crisp sounds rang out, followed by countless rays of cold light landing on the mental energy wall. For a moment, there was a deadlock. Yuan, I'm the second elder of the Arcane Guild. You dare to kill me? Elder Lu Li furiously shouted. Old dog, who was the one who said that I'm dead for sure and wanted to kill me? Now that you know that you're not my match, you actually dare to ask such an idiotic question. Is there something wrong with your head? Zhuowen's voice was incomparably sinister. This Elder Lu Li was really laughable. Just now, he said that he wanted to kill Zhuowen, but now he asked such a question. Anyone could tell that Elder Lu Li was afraid. Zhuowen's words caused Elder Lu Li's expression to darken. He coldly said, Then what do you want to let me go? You're now the 10th elder of the Arcane Guild. Don't tell me you want to go against your superiors? Old dog, did I say that I accept the position of the 10th elder? You're too naive. I'll quote what you said just now. Today you're dead for sure. With that, Yuan formed a sword seal. Instantly, a yin-yang pattern appeared above the ultimate sword formation, and the ultimate sword formation also split into two extremes of yin-yang. Yin-yang style. With a low roar, the ultimate sword formation turned into a yin-yang sword formation, and its power increased by dozens of times. The mental energy wall in front of Elder Lu Li instantly crumbled inch by inch and turned into dust. Then, under Elder Lu Li's desperate gaze, the yin-yang sword formations suddenly descended and completely penetrated him. A large amount of blood gushed out from Elder Lu Li's Tianling acupoint. Elder Lu Li roared towards the sky and fell straight to the ground. She couldn't be more dead. Hiss. Looking at Elder Lu Li, who was completely dead, the surrounding people could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The honorable second elder of the Arcane Guild died in front of them just like that. Moreover, he died so tragically. You killed Elder Brother Lu Li? On the high platform, the other 7 elders stood up one after another. Their gazes were focused on Zhuan, and their faces were filled with shock and anger. Zhuowen's actions were too fast. So fast that even they couldn't save Elder Lu Li before he died. But you want to avenge him? Slowly turning around, Zhuowen's gaze landed on the 7 elders on the high platform. His voice was flat and cold. As soon as he said that, the 7 elders' faces turned cold. None of them dared to utter a word. Elder Lu Li was the strongest elder among them. Even Elder Lu Li had died in the hands of Zhuan. Needless to say, they were definitely no match for him. Now, it wasn't worth offending Zhuowen for the dead Elder Lu Li. Seeing how Zhuowen's words stunned the 7 elders, the crowd in the square looked at Zhuowen with a different gaze. From the original indifference, it became passionate and worshipful. The young man in front of them was no more than 20 years old. Not only did he break through the firewall of 10 punches, but he also broke Master Yen Hua's arm in front of everyone without any scruples. What was even more terrifying was that even the second elder of the Arcane Guild, Elder Lu Li, had died in his hands. Now, he even stunned the 7 elders with a single sentence. How awe-inspiring was that? In the middle of the square, the tall and straight figure would probably be deeply imprinted in everyone's mind. Suddenly, a sound broke through the air. It swept out from the flaming building in the depths of Baiyang Town. In an instant, it reached the square and landed in the middle. This person was dressed in a white robe. He had white hair and a youthful face. His beard and beard were all white. At the same time, He held a horsetail whisk in his hand. He had a sage-like demeanor. Especially his eyes, which were as sharp as an eagle's, made it difficult for Juan to look straight at him. Lu Li was killed? After the white-robed elder landed in the square, his gaze immediately focused on the dead body of Elder Lu Li. He spoke unhurriedly. Reporting to Elder Xun, Brother Lioli was killed by that arrogant brat. Not only did he kill Lu Li, but he also killed the most talented Yanhua. The 8th elder hurriedly stood up and said respectfully. The other 6 elders lowered their heads and looked extremely respectful. The person in front of them was Elder Xiun, the founder of the Arcane Guild. His strength was unfathomable. Oh, was it this kid who killed him? The white-robed elder suddenly turned his head and looked at Juan, who was not far away, with a faint smile. The corners of his mouth squirmed as he said, "Little friend, it seems that our luck is really good. We actually meet again." At that moment, Juan finally saw the true face of the white-robed elder. His pupils shrank and he exclaimed, "It's you. I didn't expect you to be Elder Shiwan of the Arcane Guild." The strange conversation between Zhuowen and Elder Shiwan immediately caused many people around them to be surprised. They did not expect the mysterious Elder Shiwan to know this mysterious young man. Chapter 729. 9-colored refining flame. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he stared at the elder in the white robe. He was familiar with the elder as he was the mysterious elder who had appeared in the tattered cloth. Back then, Zhuowen's fire-melting skill was given to him by the elder. The elder in the white robe had done him a favor. "But, don't you recognize me?" The elder in the white robe smiled faintly. "Why would I? The fire-fusing art that Senior gave me back then was very helpful to me. I have always remembered Senior's kindness in my heart." Zhuowen said respectfully. The elder in the white robe before him was extremely powerful. Back then, even Xiao He was wary of him. Hence, Yuan did not dare to treat him lightly. Elder Xuan was not Elder Lu Li. He was someone who could match up to Emperor Qing. He could probably suppress Zhuowen with a flip of his hand. That is not a favor. At most, it is a deal. The myriad yen scripture that you gave me has helped me a lot. Speaking of which, I owe you a favor. Elder Xuan waved his hand and smiled. Zhuowen nodded. Back then, Elder Xuan's expression when he sensed the myriad yen scripture on him was still vivid in Zhuowen's mind. Apparently, the myriad yen scripture was extremely important to Elder Xuan. "Elder Xun, this man is treacherous. He killed Elder Lu Li. You must not let him off." Seeing that Elder Xuan and Zhuan were chatting, the 8th elder felt that something was amiss. He quickly pointed out the cause of Elder Lu Li's death and hoped that Elder Xuan would punish Xun. "I am not blind. Do I need you to remind me?" Suddenly, Elder Xun slowly turned his head and stared coldly at the 8th elder. His voice gradually became cold. The 8th elder's gaze turned cold. He smiled embarrassedly and did not dare to speak anymore. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Elder Xuan and Zhuan knew each other and they seemed to have a good relationship. If Elder Xuan wanted to punish Zhuan, he would have done so long ago. He would not have chatted with Zhuan for such a long time. However, the 8th elder insisted on bumping into the muzzle of the gun. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? "Senior, this Elder Lu Li." Zhuowen's gaze landed on Elder Glaze's corpse, and he was a little hesitant. After all, Elder Glaze was the 2nd elder of the Arcane Guild, and her status was not low. It was indeed a little inappropriate for him to kill Elder Glaze. So be it. You're stronger than him. You'll be the 2nd elder of the Arcane Guild in the future, Elder Xuan said nonchalantly. Such a nonchalant attitude immediately caused the surrounding people to tremble. Even the expressions of the other 7 elders changed slightly. However, no one refuted. Elder Xuan was the founder of the Arcane Guild and his strength was far beyond the other elders. He held the power of life and death in the Arcane Guild. They had no right to refute Elder Xuan. Moreover, as soon as Elder Lu Li died, Elder Shi Yuan immediately handed over the position of 2nd elder to the young man in front of him. It was obvious that Elder Shi Yuan valued the young man in front of him. However, Yuan shook his head and said, "I'm not interested in the position of an elder in the Arcane Guild. I'm only participating in the elder selection for the art of transcension. I hope you can fulfill my wish. I see. I can give it to you, but you need to come with me to the guild headquarters. I have something to show you. Elder Shi Yuan nodded. Zhuan nodded, and the two entered the headquarters of the Arcane Guild under the envious gazes of the crowd. The space in the Arcane Guild was very large, and there was a terrifying flow of people inside. They were all arcanists wearing long robes. When the arcanists saw Elder Shi Yuan coming in, they all lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. They did not dare to slight Elder Shi Yuan. Passing through the crowd, the two went through a rather dark and narrow tunnel until they reached the deepest part of the Arcane Guild. There was a sealed room in the deepest part of the Arcane Guild. The door of the room was made of black iron. Even if Zhuan wanted to open it with brute force, it was unlikely that he could do it. Looking at the sealed room in front of him and the grave expression on Elder Shi Yuan's face, Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of doubt. He could not understand why Elder Shi Yuan had brought him to a sealed room. Elder Shi Yuan stepped in front of the door and formed a seal with both hands. Suddenly, the door made of black iron emitted a rather dazzling light, and then the door opened automatically. A terrifying temperature suddenly burst out from the room. Zhuan was shocked to find that there was an endless sea of fire in the room. Moreover, the endless sea of fire had 9 colors. It was the 9-colored refining flame. However, the 9-colored refining flame was bound by the black iron chains and could not break free. Elder, this is the 9-colored refining flame? Zhuan asked in astonishment. It is indeed the 9-colored refining flame. Unfortunately, the 9-colored refining flame is not complete, and its power is far from the level of the heavenly fire. Elder Shi Yuan's eyes flickered as he sighed. Not complete? Zhuan was puzzled. You have also practiced the fire melting technique. Logically speaking, by combining 9 types of earth fire, you can create the legendary heavenly fire. However, it is not that simple. 9 is an extreme number. It is a number that has reached the limit. Combining 8 types of earth fire is actually not difficult for me. However, once the number of earth fire reached 9 types, the 9-colored refining flame that was formed went berserk. Speaking of this, Elder Shi Yuan's mouth revealed a touch of bitterness. He did not expect the 9-colored refining flame to go berserk unexpectedly. Upon hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. His gaze converged on the ceiling of the room, where the 9-colored refining flame was bound by countless black iron chains. He could feel the violence in the 9-colored refining flame. If the 9-colored refining flame were to break free from the black iron chains, the power that would erupt would destroy the entire Arcane Guild. Elder, what do you mean? Zhuan vaguely guessed Elder Shi Yuan's intention. Young friend, you have also practiced the myriad evolution scripture. Your mental strength is huge, far exceeding that of an ordinary complete grade 5 arcanist. The 9-colored refining flame is very strange. As time goes by, it will continue to grow stronger. Moreover, I can clearly feel that the 9-colored refining flame is gradually developing spiritual intelligence. I am afraid that not long after, the flame is likely to break the seal. When that time comes, the entire Baiyang town will be plunged into misery and suffering. Speaking of this, Elder Shi Yuan revealed a bitter smile. Back then, when he was in high spirits, he had merged the 9-colored refining flame. He originally thought that it would greatly increase his strength. However, he did not expect to create such a disaster. Spiritual intelligence? Zhuan was shocked. He did not expect the 9-colored refining flame to develop spiritual intelligence. This was indeed a sign of the heavenly fire. Elder, what do you want me to do? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Elder Shi Yuan waved his sleeve and a translucent palm-sized octahedral crystal quietly floated above his palm. This is the mysterious ice soul. It has a terrifying cold Yin power. Although it is far from being able to withstand the power of the 9-colored refining flame, with our mental strength, we should be able to suppress the 9-colored refining flame with the help of this mysterious ice soul. Later on, I will be setting up a grade 6 origin formation, the Extreme Mysterious Array. This mysterious ice soul will be the array core of the Extreme Mysterious Array. Once it is set up successfully, the 9-colored refining flame will be suppressed forever and will not be able to do anything. Speaking of this, Elder Shi Yuan's face was extremely solemn. He continued, however, the 9-colored refining flame already has some spiritual intelligence. It can feel the threat of the extreme mysterious array. Therefore, when I'm setting up the array, it will definitely attack. So, you plan to help you withstand the attack of the 9-colored refining flame when you are setting up the extreme mysterious array? Zhuowen's face was slightly pale. The 9-colored refining flame was extremely terrifying. Although it did not become a heavenly flame due to the failure of the fusion, its power was much more terrifying than his 7-colored phoenix. It would be difficult for Zhuowen to withstand it. Little friend, you don't have to worry too much. Although the 9-colored refining flame is powerful, most of its power has been sealed by the black iron chain. It can only release a portion of its power. If you take action, you should be able to withstand it. Elder Shi Yuan explained. Even so, the risk is still not small. After all, this is the 9-colored refining flame. Although there's nothing wrong with me helping you, senior, you should take out something practical, Zhuowen said with a frown. Zhuowen could not help Elder Shi Yuan for nothing. After all, Elder Shi Yuan was not someone he knew and he could not be so selfless. Little friend, don't worry. If you can help me set up the extreme mysterious array, I will give you the secret spiritual skill, the transcendent realm skill. I will also pass on my experience of failing to merge the 9-colored refining flame to you. What do you think? When Elder Shi Yuan said that, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He could get the transcendent realm skill. However, he was more interested in Elder Shi Yuan's experience of failing to merge the 9-colored refining flame. From Elder Shi Yuan, it was not difficult to merge the 9-colored refining flame. However, once the 9 earthly flames were gathered, it would be extremely difficult to merge the heavenly flame into one. Elder Shi Yuan was a terrifying rank 6 arcana master. If such a person had failed to merge the 9 earthly flames, it showed how difficult it would be to merge the heavenly flame. If Zhuowen could get Elder Shi Yuan's experience of failing to merge the heavenly flame, it would be easier for him to merge the heavenly flame when he gathered the 9 earthly flames. Little friend, what do you think? Elder Shi Yuan asked with a smile when he saw the interest in Zhuowen's eyes. I agree. I hope that you can pass on all your experiences to me. Don't generalize. Zhuowen nodded. Don't worry. I will do what I say. I will not play any tricks. Since you have agreed, let's begin. Elder Shi Yuan nodded his head and took a step forward. A terrifying flaming aura swept towards Elder Shi Yuan like a hurricane. Elder Shi Yuan snorted. His terrifying mental strength swept out and shattered the flame chi around him. Zhuowen followed closely behind Elder Shi Yuan. Little fellow, when I set up the extreme mysterious array later, I won't be able to take care of myself. Moreover, the 9-colored refining flame will also stop me. Therefore, you must protect me well, Elder Shi Yuan instructed solemnly as he came to the center of the room. Chapter 730. Extreme mystic formation. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, Elder Shi Yuan turned around and stared at the black ice soul in his hand with a grave expression. With a shake of his sleeve, 7 translucent primal crystals flew out from Elder Shi Yuan's sleeve. They were like stars revolving around the ice soul. Heaven and earth profound ice, 7-star chilling soul. Give me the extreme concentration array. Elder Shi Yuan bellowed and a surge of mental strength gushed out from his Naiwan palace. Instantly, the 7 primal crystals that were originally revolving around the ice soul gave off a dazzling light. Bush, bush, bush. Instantly, the 7 crystals stopped spinning. Instead, with the mysterious ice soul as the center, they formed the Big Dipper and arranged themselves in an orderly manner. A soul-stirring coldness burst out of the profound ice frost soul at the center and turned into countless blue tentacles that connected the 7 origin crystals. Boom! At the moment of connection, a surge of blue cold air slowly swept out from the 7 origin crystals, and the amount was increasing, almost turning the surroundings into a cloud of blue fog. Moreover, this strange blue mist was still growing, and its range was constantly expanding. Rumble! The moment the blue mist appeared, The 9 colored flames that were trapped by the black iron chains in the sky suddenly surged violently. Terrifying 9 colored flames gushed out from the gaps between the chains and headed toward the extreme mystic formation that was brewing below. The 9 colored refining flame felt threatened by the extreme mystic formation below. It would not allow such a threatening thing to appear here, as it would make it feel very uneasy. Yuan. It will take at least an hour to fully activate the extreme mystic array. Help me buy some time. Elder Xiwan shouted without turning his head. He formed another seal with both hands. The blue mist in the extreme mystic array became denser and the speed at which it spread was much faster than before. Zhuan nodded, and a 10-feet-long bone spear appeared in his hand. Then, he shook his right hand and unleashed a terrifying spear intention. Countless tadpole-like spear shadows flashed out and swept upwards layer by layer. Rumble! Countless wisps of flames that seeped out from the gaps of the chains were completely extinguished under the power of Zhuo Wen's spear intent. Perhaps the 9-colored refining flame felt that its attack had been blocked, but it was enraged. It struggled violently, causing the chains to shake unsteadily. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Wisps of terrifying flames swept out, and they turned into 9-colored flaming tentacles. These flaming tentacles were a few dozen feet long, and they looked extremely terrifying. Zhuo Wen's gaze became extremely grave as he looked at the flaming tentacles in the sky. This was a 9-colored refining flame. Its might was so terrifying that even he was extremely fearful of it. His right hand shook once again, and countless spear shadows swept out once again, and bombarded the flame tentacles above. Bang, 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 swoosh, 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 swoosh. Nirvana of the great sun, annihilation. With a low roar, Zhuowen's body was covered in golden light. A terrifying golden giant with 2 heads and 2 arms walked out from the spatial crack. It looked like a god and a demon, and it swept toward the countless flaming tentacles. Boom, boom, boom. The golden giant's body was extremely terrifying. It stood in front of Zhuowen and blocked the countless flaming tentacles. Although it was barely able to block them, it still managed to hold on. As time passed, the extreme mysterious array that Elder Xiwan had set up grew stronger. The blue mist had almost covered 2/3 of the room. Perhaps the 9-colored refining flame had sensed the great threat of the extreme mysterious array, so it finally roared. Its voice was filled with rage. The countless flaming tentacles in the sky suddenly joined together, forming a huge flaming vine that was hundreds of feet long. It almost covered the entire room. Boom! In an instant, the terrifying flaming vine whipped the golden giant. Zhuowen's pupils shrank when he saw that the indestructible golden giant had been smashed into countless golden lights. What a terrifying attack! Zhuowen whispered with an ugly expression. Swoosh! As soon as the golden giant was smashed, the huge flaming vine swept toward Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He quickly summoned the infinite sword array and used the yin-yang form. Suddenly, a yin-yang limitless pattern appeared above the sword array. The pattern rotated at a high speed and divided into 2 extremes. Boom! The flaming vine arrived in an instant and whipped the yin-yang sword array. The powerful force caused the yin-yang sword array to tremble violently and let out a mournful cry. Swoosh! A mouthful of blood leaked from the corner of Zhuowen's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock. The flaming vines were terrifying. Just a single whip was enough to injure him, who was within the sword formation. Bang, bang, bang. The flaming vine whipped out again when it missed its target. Endless flaming whips appeared in the air and whipped the yin-yang sword array continuously. With every whip, Yun took a step back. He had taken almost 15 steps back, but the flaming vine did not give up. Senior, is the ultimate mystic array not ready yet? Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Zhuowen looked at the flaming vines that were flying towards him once again. His heart trembled in shock. The flaming vines were too terrifying. If he were to receive another attack, he would be seriously injured. It's done! Elder Xiwan suddenly shouted and shook his sleeve. Suddenly, the ultimate mystic array, which was in the shape of the Big Dipper array, was lifted and swept upward. Cold air surged out and almost froze the air. As soon as Elder Shiwan finished his words, Zhuan spread out his 3 pairs of thunder wings and avoided the flaming vine that was sweeping toward him again. He stood behind Elder Shun. The current him no longer dared to face the flame vine. This thing was simply too terrifying. He simply couldn't bear it. Boom! Endless blue mist gushed out and almost froze the air. The ultimate mystic array slowly swept toward the 9-colored refining flame on the chain. The 9-colored refining flame finally felt restless. The ultimate mystic array that was sweeping toward it made it uncomfortable. Swoosh! The flaming vine violently lashed out, trying to destroy the ultimate mystic array that was sweeping toward it. Unfortunately, the moment the flaming vine came into contact with the blue mist, it was frozen into a blue ice sculpture and shattered into countless ice shards. In an instant, the ultimate mystic array arrived above the chain. The 7 profound crystals revolved around the chain and the mysterious ice-cold soul drilled into the 9-colored refining flame in the chain with a swoosh. Sizzle! Sizzle! A soft sound rang out, and then Zhuowen was shocked to discover that the terrifying and surging 9-colored flames were actually gradually extinguishing and shrinking. In the end, it transformed into a thumb-sized candlelight that seemed extremely inconspicuous. Finally, the 9-colored refining flame has been completely sealed. In the future, the 9-colored refining flame will not be able to escape from the ultimate mystic array. Elder Shiwan smiled excitedly. In order to completely seal the 9-colored refining flame, he had tried for many years. Today, his wish had finally come true. Little friend Zhuan, it's all thanks to you this time. If not for your help, I'm afraid it would have been difficult to seal the terrifying 9-colored refining flame. Elder Shiwan turned his head and looked at Zhuowen with a smile. He was quite excited. It's all thanks to you that I was able to seal the 9-colored refining flame. I only did a little bit of my strength, Tuan said humbly. You're too modest. This is the transcendent art. It can increase the chances of a breakthrough. With that, Elder Shiwan flicked his finger and a scroll slowly appeared in Zhuowen's palm. It was glowing and there were 3 small words written on the scroll. It was the transcendent art. After receiving the transcendent art, Zhuowen's face lit up. This secret spiritual skill would be of great help to him in breaking through to grade 6. Little friend, the transcendent art is only useful for arcana masters below grade 6. Once your cultivation reaches grade 6, this secret spiritual skill will become useless, Elder Shiwan suddenly said. When Zhuan heard this, he was stunned at first. Then, he nodded his head with a tinge of disappointment in his heart. Originally, he had thought that the transcendent art could be used all the time. Now, it seemed that he had thought too much. However, Zhuan was satisfied that it could help him break through to grade 6. After all, grade 6 arcana masters were extremely powerful and rare. In the entire Qingxian Empire, perhaps only Elder Shiwan had reached such a level. Elder, what about the experience of fusing the 9-colored refining flame? Zhuan rubbed his hands in anticipation. Don't worry, I won't forget it either. Elder Shiwan raised his eyebrows. His right hand formed a sword finger and pointed at Zhuowen's forehead. Suddenly, a stream of information was transmitted from Elder Shiwan's finger to Zhuowen's mind. After browsing through it, Zhuowen was surprised to find that the information contained all of Elder Shiwan's experience of fusing the 9-colored refining flames. It even pointed out in great detail why he had failed. However, as Zhuowen browsed through it, his eyebrows knitted together tightly. This was because the information said that in order to successfully fuse the 9-colored earth fire and transform into a real heavenly fire, one must have something. That thing was called the thousand-fold fossil. It was a strange stone that could turn something rotten into something magical. If the thousand-fold fossil was used to fuse the earth fire, it would definitely transform into a heavenly fire. Thousand-fold fossil? Zhuowen muttered softly and knitted his eyebrows. He had never heard of the thousand-fold fossil. How could he find it? Elder, this thousand-fold fossil? Zhuowen raised his head and could not help but ask Elder Shun. Elder Shun shook his head and said, The thousandfold fossil has not been seen since 10,000 years ago. To find this stone is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, I know that the chief arcana master of the Arcana faction in Fine Theology College has clues about the thousandfold fossil. The chief arcana master of the Arcana faction in Fine Theology College? Chapter 731. The newly appointed second elder, the head arcana master of Fine Gods Academy, is called Mu Feng. He's an extremely stubborn old man. Back then, I went to Fine Gods Academy to ask about the thousandfold fossil, but I was chased out by that old man. Speaking of this, Elder Shiwan's face turned pale. It was obvious that he had been bullied back then. Mu Feng? Muttering softly, Zhuan remembered this name. When he entered Fine Gods College in the future, he would definitely get clues about the thousandfold fossil from this person. Young man, you actually have a rank 5 primordial array like the Greater Infinite Sword Formation? I remember that this primordial array was incomplete. Just now, I saw that your sword formation was complete. Could it be that you repaired it? Elder Shi Yuan stared at the greater limitless sword formation around Zhuan with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Nodding his head, Zhuan smiled and said, "This is also a coincidence. I found an incomplete sword formation in the Greater Infinite Sword Formation and repaired it completely. Little friend, it seems that your luck is not shallow. You were actually able to find an incomplete small sword formation." Elder Shiwan nodded his head and did not continue to ask. After all, everyone had their secrets and he naturally would not get to the bottom of it. There are a total of 5 sword moves in the Greater Infinite Sword Formation. May I know how many moves you have mastered? Elder Shiwan suddenly asked. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he replied, "The first 2 moves are the blood-weeping move and the yin-yang move." Although Zhuowen's mental strength had reached rank 5 great completion and it was not a big problem for him to comprehend the 5 moves of the Greater Infinite Sword Formation, he had just reached it not long ago and had not completely comprehended it. It would take a lot of time to completely comprehend it. As for the last 3 moves, I have some insights. I will pass them to you as a reward for helping me seal the 9-colored refining flame. With that, Elder Shi Yuan flicked his finger and a white light shot out from the tip of his finger and entered between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Immediately, a stream of information flashed through Zhuowen's mind. It was all about the sword moves in the Infinite Sword Formation. After roughly browsing through the information in his sea of consciousness, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with joy. With the detailed explanation of these sword moves, Zhuan could quickly grasp the last 3 sword moves of the Greater Limitless Sword Formation. Young friend, I've never seen such a high level of mental strength in my entire life. Why don't you stay in the Arcane Guild and become the second elder? Elder Shiwan once again invited Zhuowen to become an elder. Zhuowen was young, but he had the terrifying mind strength of a rank 5 great completion. His future was limitless. Elder Shiwan really loved talent and did not want to let him go. Hearing that, Zhuowen's face showed a trace of hesitation. Becoming the second elder of the Arcane Guild was naturally beneficial to him, but he was afraid that this identity would restrict him too much. He did not like this kind of restriction. Young friend, you don't have to worry. The Arcane Guild will not restrict your movements. You're just a nominal second elder. I won't interfere with where you want to go, Elder Shi Yuan said in a serious tone. Oh, won't interfere with me? Zhuowen's eyes showed a trace of surprise. Elder Shi Yuan was really generous. Not only did he let him become the second elder of the Arcane Guild, but he also did not restrict his movements and allowed him to go in and out freely. This was simply a great thing that fell from the sky. How about it? You should agree to it now, right? Elder Shi Yuan said with a smile. Zhuowen nodded and smiled. If that's the case, I'll take the liberty to agree. Thank you, Elder Shi Yuan. You don't have to thank me. You're so talented you'll definitely surpass me one day. If I don't keep a genius like you, I'll really be blind in my old age. Elder Shi Yuan smiled and waved his hand. Suddenly he said seriously, although I won't interfere with your movements, you're still the second elder of the Arcane Guild. If Baiyang Town is in trouble, you can't sit back and do nothing. Of course. Zhuowen nodded. This is the elder's token. Take it first. Elder Shi Yuan shook his sleeve and suddenly a black token appeared in Zhuowen's palm. The word 2 was engraved on the surface of the token, which should represent the ranking of the elders. This token has a communication function. Any elder who is in trouble will use this communication function to send a distress message to other elders. If you're in trouble in the future, you can use the communication function of the token. I'll go over personally when the time comes, Elder Shi Yuan said with a smile. There's a communication function? Zhuan stared at the token in his hand in amazement. Zhuan chatted with Elder Shi Yuan for a while more before he bade farewell and left Baiyang town. The Green Emperor ranking battle was about to begin. Zhuan needed to prepare well. His goal this time was to be in the top 5 of the Green Emperor ranking battle. Outside the square, Elder Shi Yuan silently looked at the figure in the distance. Soon after, he said to the crowd in the square in a clear voice, Elder Lu Li was killed by Zhuan because she was not as skilled as him. From now on, the second elder of the Arcane Guild is no longer Lu Li but Tun. Do you all understand? As soon as these words came out, the crowd in the square was in an uproar. They did not expect Elder Shi Yuan to actually bestow the position of the second elder to the young Zhuan. It seemed a little ridiculous. However, when they recalled that Zhuan could even kill Elder Lu Li, the position of the second elder was worthy of his name. The other 7 elders looked at each other and a bitter smile appeared on their faces. It seemed like Elder Lu Li's death was too unjust. After returning to the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Yuan directly returned to his room. There was only a month left until the ranking battle, although it would be difficult for Zhuan to raise his cultivation again. However, this time, Zhuan had the detailed explanation of the sword moves of the infinite sword formation that Elder Shi Yuan had given him. He would be able to grasp the last 3 sword moves of the infinite sword formation in the final period of time. This way, Yuan would be much more confident in the ranking battle. Time flew by like a white steed flitting by a crack. A month had quietly passed. The rising sun slowly rose into the sky and a ray of golden light scattered in the imperial city. The originally deserted streets were extremely lively today. The wide streets were bustling with people like dragons. At a glance, it was basically a sea of people. Everyone's eyes were filled with passion and anticipation. The stream of people was like a huge dragon as they continuously flowed towards the imperial city at the heart of the imperial city. Today was the day of the Azure Emperor ranking battle. The 100 geniuses who had emerged from the Peach Blossom origin painting would have a real battle to determine the rankings of the Azure Emperor ranking. This was a true gathering of geniuses, an intense battle that was highly anticipated by everyone. Within the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian led Zhuowen, Luo Xing, LV Tao and the rest towards the imperial city. They were also looking forward to the ranking battle. Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian had high hopes for Zhuan. After all, with Zhuowen's strength and talent, they believed that Zhuan had a very high chance of entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking. If Zhuowen really entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking, he would break the record of the top 10 geniuses of the imperial city. Therefore, Lu Hantian and the rest had high hopes for Zhuan. Lu Hantian and the rest were not slow. They entered the imperial city in half an hour. Due to their previous experience, they were familiar with the huge square in front of the throne room. The ranking battle was a grand event of the imperial city. With the Azure Emperor's permission, all the members of the imperial city who had some status in the imperial city were basically present. In just a moment, the square was filled with people. In the middle of the square, there were 10 huge stages made of green stones. They looked very intimidating. Lu Hantian led the 8 of them and slowly entered the square under the gazes of the crowd. They stopped at a resting area that was specially set up for the 100 geniuses of the 9 great provinces to rest. "Brother Lu, you guys came really early." A rather enthusiastic voice suddenly sounded. Lu Hantian and the rest turned their heads and saw an old man with sparkling eyes. He was leading a young man in white clothes towards them. This old man was the county lord of Lu Yen County, Qiu Changxing. The one following him was the number 1 genius of Lu Yen County, Qiu Shaoyin. In this 9 counties Great War, Lu Yen County was ranked 8th. They were ranked higher than Lu Yen County and had risen one place from the previous Great War. Such a result was actually quite good for Qiu Changxing. Speaking of which, Qiu Changxing had to thank Zhuan. If it wasn't for Zhuan eliminating so many geniuses of Lu Yen County might have been ranked last again. Brother Qiu. Lu Nantian greeted him with a smile. This time, your Muqing County is really in the limelight. Who would have thought that your county's ranking would soar to second place? Especially your county's Zhuan. This kid is definitely a hidden dragon. Saying so, Qiu Changxing couldn't help but look at Zhuan, who was behind Lu Nantian. His eyes were filled with envy as he secretly sighed in his heart. Why didn't their Lu Yen County have such a peerless genius? Brother Qiu is too kind. Although Lu Nantian's words were modest, the corners of his mouth were full of smiles. In a certain area of the square, a rather wide palanquin was parked. The veil in front of the palanquin was gently lifted and two beautiful figures slowly walked out. The two beautiful figures were both young women. One of the women had an ordinary appearance and was not eye-catching at all. Her figure was even curvaceous, causing one to be lost in wild and fanciful thoughts. The other woman was so beautiful that she could captivate birds and beasts. As soon as she appeared, she attracted the attention of the surrounding crowd. Many people stared at this woman with infatuation. If Zhuan noticed this, he would definitely recognize these two women. Weren't they Jing Yun and Huangfu Zixia, whom he had met in the inspection treasure hall? At this moment, Huangfu Zixia also noticed Zhuan, who was behind Lu Hantian. Her beautiful eyes flashed as she said with a complicated expression, "I never thought that the guy we didn't pay attention to back then would actually be such a genius." The two women had naturally heard of Zhuan's achievements. Therefore, when they looked at Zhuan, their gazes contained traces of complicated emotions. This Zhuan has been in the limelight recently. However, it is said that this kid was beaten to a pulp by His Highness the Second Prince in the Peach Blossom origin diagram. If he meets His Highness the Second Prince in this ranking competition, this kid will definitely lose. Standing at the side, Huangfu Zixia crossed her arms in front of her chest and said with some disdain. Back then, Nguyen had not given her any face at all. Even now, she was still brooding about it. Therefore, her attitude toward Zhuan was naturally not good. Chapter 732. Ring number 8. As time passed, the square became more and more lively. Most of the people had come because of the Green Emperor ranking battle. They wanted to watch the Green Emperor ranking battle. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Other than Muqing County and Lu Yen County, the other county lords had also brought their geniuses to the Azure Emperor rankings top 100 to the square. With the arrival of the other county lords, the 5 great clans of the imperial capital county also brought their top geniuses to the square. After the 5 great clans arrived at the square, Nguyen felt 2 unfriendly gazes converging on him, causing his eyelids to twitch slightly. Turning his head slightly, Nguyen narrowed his eyes and discovered that Feng Yong was grinning coldly at him from the front of the Feng clan's team. His right hand even made a throat-slitting gesture. At the front of the Grand clan's team, Grand Lily's beautiful eyes were filled with coldness and killing intent as she stared indifferently at Zhuan. Looking at the unfriendly gazes of the two, Nguyen sneered in his heart. With Zhuan's current strength and his perfect grade 5 mental energy, his strength had increased by several times compared to 3 months ago. Zhuan was not even afraid of an 8-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Swoosh! Another sound of something breaking through the air rang out. In the sky, several streaks of green light shot over at lightning speed and arrived at the square in an instant. The green light faded away, revealing 8 figures. The leader was a middle-aged man in a green robe. He was the Blue Dragon Hall's branch hall master, Aoki. Beside Qing Mu stood 2 young men with slender figures. They were also dressed in long green robes. One of them had a dignified appearance, and there was always a faint smile on his face. His name was Qing Ming, and he was one of the Azure Dragon Branch Hall's 2 peerless heroes. He was also ranked 4th on the Azure Emperor ranking. His strength was extremely terrifying, and he was one of the popular contenders for the top 5 spots on the Azure Emperor ranking. The other person was also in a green robe. However, He wore an azure dragon mask, making it impossible to see his true appearance. His entire person seemed mysterious and ethereal. This person's name was Qing Yen, one of the two peerless heroes of the Azure Dragon Subpalace. He was ranked below Qing Ming, and was ranked 5th on the Azure Emperor ranking. His strength was also unfathomable, and he was even more mysterious than Qing Ming. It was said that Qing Yen had intentionally concealed his strength in the previous ranking competition. As for his true strength, it was unknown. Many geniuses were wary of him. Zhuan had some understanding of the top 5 on the Azure Emperor rankings. Each and every one of them was terrifyingly powerful, and they would be his greatest enemy to enter the top 5 this time. These 5 people were first Prince Huangfu Wudao, Murong Zhan of the Murong clan, Zhu Bai of the Zhu clan, Qing Ming of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace, and Qing Yen of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace. Moreover, Glen Lily, who was ranked 6th in the previous tournament, had improved her strength very quickly. This time, she could be considered a troublesome opponent. This ranking tournament could be said to be filled with experts and geniuses. Not long after the people of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace arrived, a group of figures walked out from the throne room. The Azure Emperor led more than a dozen geniuses of the royal family as he slowly walked towards the square. On either side of him were Huangfu Wudao and Huangfu Wuji. However, when Zhuan's eyes fell on Huangfu Wuji, he frowned. Huangfu Wuji's aura seemed to be much stronger than before, and even gave off a faint sense of pressure. He broke through. Zhun narrowed his eyes as he stared at Huangfu Wuji, muttering to himself. He hadn't thought that Huangfu Wuji would break through in just 3 months. Huangfu Wuji had been at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm, but now that he had broken through, he had likely reached the Ultimate Emperor realm. Moreover, the cultivation method that Huangfu Wuji used was given to him by the Azure Emperor. It was said that it was a cultivation method that surpassed the Emperor Realm armor skill. It was a legendary Venerable Realm armor skill, and was extremely powerful. Although Huangfu Wuji had just reached the early Ultimate Emperor Realm, his combat strength was likely comparable to a middle Ultimate Emperor Realm or even a late Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist. Huangfu Wuji tilted his head, his eyes faintly looking at Zhuan in Muqing County. His eyes were filled with arrogance and confidence. Little bastard, you better not be eliminated so early in this ranking tournament. I will personally cripple you in front of everyone. Huangfu Wuji glanced at Zhuan not too far away, his eyes filled with confidence that victory was within his grasp. If this were 3 months ago, before he had broken through, then perhaps he would have feared this Zhuan. But ever since he had broken through to the Ultimate Emperor realm, his strength had undergone an earth-shaking change. Zhuan no longer placed him in his eyes. In his opinion, the current Zhuan was nothing more than a clown, an existence that he could casually crush to death. Huangfu Wuji still felt a lingering fear as he thought of his life in the Forbidden Area for the past 3 months. The Forbidden Area was filled with dangers, and he had narrowly escaped death several times. If it weren't for the protective treasure that the Azure Emperor had given him, he would have already perished in the Forbidden Area. Fortunately, he had managed to leave the Forbidden Area alive, and his cultivation had finally broken through the shackles, smoothly reaching the Ultimate Emperor realm. The heavens did not disappoint those who persevered. Huangfu Wuji was very confident that he would be able to enter the top 5 of the Azure Emperor rankings. With the arrival of the Azure Emperor and the others, the top 100 geniuses of the Azure Emperor rankings had already gathered in the square. Around the square, countless onlookers stared at the top 100 geniuses with blazing eyes. They all knew that these top 100 geniuses were the top geniuses of the Azure Mystic Empire. Each one of them was a monstrous genius with extraordinary strength. Moreover, after the ranking tournament began, these top geniuses would have a fierce battle between tigers and dragons. It would be a spectacular showdown. After arriving at the square, the Azure Emperor looked around and nodded with satisfaction. He said in a clear voice, "Today is the day of the Azure Emperor Rankings Tournament. Many geniuses will have a great showdown today." As the Azure Emperor spoke, he waved his sleeve and pointed at the 10 blue stone rings in the center of the square. He continued to say, "These 10 blue stone rings are the locations of the ranking tournament. They are numbered from 1 to 10. The rules are very simple. This emperor will choose 10 groups from the 100 of you. Each group will have 10 people, and they will go to the corresponding rings. The ring battles will be conducted in an elimination system. No matter what method you use, as long as you can eliminate the other geniuses and become the strongest in your group, then you will be able to enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. As these words came out, no one was too surprised. In the past, the ranking tournament had always followed these rules. The 10 blue stone rings would be divided into 10 groups of geniuses. Only the strongest in a group would be able to smoothly enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. This system also had a certain degree of ruthlessness and randomness. If the strength of the cultivators in the group that was drawn happened to be on the weaker side, then the strongest person selected would not live up to the name. Some groups would be assigned to several seeded opponents at the same time. Then, the competition in that group would become extremely intense and terrifying. Therefore, there was still a lack of fairness. However, the Azure Emperor emphasized natural selection. The stronger one would be. If a cultivator had a fluke mentality, then he would be a weakling. Such a person would not be qualified to enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Many of the geniuses in the square were stunned when they heard the rules mentioned by the Azure Emperor. Juan was no exception. This method of grouping to determine the strongest person was too random. After all, once a terrifying expert like Huangfu Wudao was assigned to a group, there was no suspense at all. Huangfu Wudao would definitely be the final winner. Moreover, if multiple top 10 monstrous geniuses were assigned to the same group at the same time, one of them would definitely be injured. At that time, one of the top 10 monstrous geniuses would also be eliminated. Now, I will divide you into groups. Emperor Qing did not care about the other people's expressions. With a wave of his sleeve, a green light spilled out from his sleeve and flew toward the 100 geniuses in the square. Upon closer inspection, these green lights were actually made up of palm-sized bamboo sticks. Juan stretched out his right hand and pinched a green bamboo stick. He turned his hand over and saw that the bamboo stick had the word 8 written on it. Juan knew that he should be assigned to arena number 8 this time. The surrounding geniuses all stretched out their hands to grab the green light in the air and checked the numbers on the bamboo sticks. After all 100 geniuses had received their bamboo sticks, the Lotus the Arch waved his sleeves again, and the green light in the sky disappeared. Those who have obtained the bamboo sticks, please go to your respective arenas now. Emperor Qing's indifferent and majestic voice sounded again. Bush, bush. A series of sonic booms immediately sounded out as the many geniuses in the square held their bamboo sticks and rushed towards their respective arenas. Instantly, the sky above the square was filled with countless figures. It was as if a swarm of locusts had passed through. It looked extremely dark and terrifying. Juan instantly arrived at arena number 8. At that moment, there were already 9 other figures standing there. To Juan's surprise, there were a few familiar faces among the 9 figures. Juan, looks like you're very unlucky to have met me in the group stage. A black-clothed youth with triangular eyes slowly walked toward Juan. He stared coldly at Juan as if he was staring at his prey. Feng Yong? You're right. You're very unlucky. Coincidentally, I still have to settle the old score from 3 months ago. Juan was not afraid and spoke indifferently. As soon as Juan spoke these words, Feng Yong was stunned. He'd never imagined that not only was Juan not afraid of him, Juan instead seemed to be fearless. Moreover, he faintly sensed that Juan seemed to not take him seriously. Juan's attitude made Feng Yong extremely unhappy. He coldly snorted and said, "It's indeed time to settle the old score. You'll soon know what regret is." As he spoke, Feng Yong returned to the edge of the arena. His cold gaze stared at Juan, as if he could devour him at any time. On arena number 8, besides Feng Yong, there was another person that Juan was familiar with. Juan was also familiar with. His gaze turned slightly and landed on the cold lady with long snow-white hair not far away from arena number 8. The smile on his lips grew even wider. As if she had noticed Juan's gaze, the cold lady also looked over. When she saw Zhuowen, a trace of fear immediately appeared in her beautiful eyes. This lady was the #1 genius of Icebound County, Wen Aoshue. Ever since Zhuowen robbed her of the extreme amethyst ice grass in the peach blossom origin diagram, Wen Aoshue hated Zhuowen to the core. Chapter 733. The overbearing Huangfu Wudao. The 100 geniuses were divided into 10 groups, each standing on their own arena. Zhuowen glanced around the other arenas, roughly understanding the situation of the other arenas. Huangfu Wudao was in the first arena, Qing Yan was in the second arena, Grand Lily was in the third arena, Murong Zhan was in the fourth arena, Qing Ming was in the fifth arena, Guosheng was in the sixth arena, Zhu Bai was in the seventh arena, and Huangfu Wuji was in the 10th arena. The top 10 geniuses of the Azure Emperor Proclamation were mostly assigned to different arenas. But the 8th arena was extremely different. There were actually 2 top 10 Azure Emperor Proclamation contestants there. They were the 8th-ranked Feng Yong and the 10th-ranked Chao Yan. Therefore, the 8th arena attracted the attention of many people. This 8th arena is really unlucky. It was actually assigned to 2 top 10 Azure Emperor Proclamation contestants. I'm afraid that Feng Yong and Chao Yan will have a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. Don't forget, the 8th arena also has Wen Aoshue. Wen Aoshue is the #1 genius of the 8 great counties, and he is ranked 11th on the Azure Emperor Proclamation. His strength is also not weak. There is also that Zhuowen who suddenly rose up. That boy is also not weak. I'm afraid that he isn't as simple as he seems. The competition for the 8th arena is probably the most intense out of the 10 arenas. Complicated discussions immediately sounded around the square. Numerous gazes were thrown towards the #8 arena. Everyone's eyes revealed a heated and expectant expression. The 8th arena was filled with powerhouses. There would inevitably be a great battle. It was unlike the other arenas where the top 10 geniuses of the Azure Emperor Proclamation dominated. There was no suspense to the outcome. This boy is really unlucky. He actually ran into Chao Yan and Feng Yong. On the 10th martial arena, Huangfu Wuji crossed his arms across his chest. He was high up in the air, looking down at the 8th martial arena with a mocking sneer on his face. In his opinion, Nguyen meeting Feng Yong ahead of time meant that he was doomed to lose. Although Feng Yong's ranking was lower than his strength was not bad. Back then, they had been evenly matched. Now that he had broken through, his strength was far higher than Feng Yong's, but Feng Yong's strength could not be underestimated. He was not someone that Zhuowen could resist. In the 3rd arena, Grand Lily also noticed the situation in the 8th arena. Her eyes were filled with ridicule, but she didn't say a word. Outside the arena, Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian frowned. They didn't think that Zhuowen would encounter such a strong opponent. Chao Yan was ranked 10th, and his cultivation level was around the mid-stage of the 7-wheel emperor realm. Lu Hantian knew that with Zhuowen's strength, Chao Yan should be able to defeat him. But Feng Yong was different. Feng Yong was much stronger than Chao Yan. He had a cultivation at the peak of the extreme 7-wheel emperor realm. His strength was terrifying. Lu Hantian was also worried for Zhuowen. Zhuowen hadn't mentioned the increase in his martial arts cultivation and mental strength to Lu Hantian. Thus, Lu Hantian still believed that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the early extreme 7-wheel emperor realm. Thus, he was a bit worried. Zhuowen naturally heard the discussions around him clearly. However, he did not take it to heart. With his current strength, entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor Proclamation wasn't a problem. As for that Feng Yong, Nguyen didn't care too much about him. Looking around the 10 arenas, Nguyen also discovered the other geniuses of Muqin County. Lu Yitao was in the 9th arena. What surprised Zhuowen was that there wasn't anyone in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor Proclamation in the 9th arena. The warriors there were generally weaker. Lu Yitao was ranked 15th on the Azure Emperor Proclamation. In the 9th arena, his cultivation was considered top-notch. The only person who could pose a threat to him was probably the #1 genius of Shijiang County, the Lightless Monk. The Lightless Monk was ranked 14th on the Azure Emperor Proclamation. He was very low-key and always had a kind smile on his face. His palms were clasped together and he looked very amiable. Looking at the lightless monk in the 9th arena, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. It was said that Shijiang County worshipped ancient Buddhas and had countless temples. The lord of the county was a Buddha named Withered Lamp Buddha. What surprised Zhuon was that the lightless monk, who had a kind smile, gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through him. This feeling was very strange. He knew that the lightless monk was definitely not simple. Originally, after obtaining the nirvana of Arcana, Zhuon had suspected that there might be a mysterious Buddhism in the heavenly armor continent. Now, it seemed that Buddhism really existed. After all, the warriors in Shijiang County worshipped ancient Buddhas and their dressing was similar to the monks in temples on earth. The lightless monk, who was standing quietly in the 9th arena, seemed to have noticed Zhuowen's gaze. He slowly tilted his head and stared at Zhuon. The corners of his mouth curled up into a kind smile as he nodded at Zhuon. Zhuon also nodded in return. However, his heart was heavy. He felt that the lightless monk was very strong. The possibility of Lu Yitao defeating the lightless monk was very low. In Muqing County, other than Lu Yitao, Luo Xing and Qing Lian were in the 2nd and 5th arenas respectively. The two of them were unlucky. Their arenas were basically filled with the top 10 geniuses on the Azure Emperor proclamation. It was almost impossible for the two of them to stand out in their respective arenas. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Air-rending sounds suddenly flew out from the throne room. When the crowd looked over, they realized that there were actually 10 figures flying out from the throne room. The 10 of them were middle-aged men in armor. Their auras were surging and they were full of killing intent. With one look, one could tell that they were soldiers who had been on the battlefield for many years. The 10 great generals of the empire. I didn't expect His Majesty the Azure Emperor to even gather these 10. It seems that he places great importance on this ranking battle. The crowd immediately recognized the 10 figures that suddenly flew out from the throne room. Their faces were filled with shock. The Qing Xin Empire had a vast territory. Furthermore, outside the 10 borders of the Qing Xin Empire, there were 3 other empires. Their strength was not inferior to the Qing Xin Empire. Over the years, the neighboring powers would inevitably have conflicts and wars. Therefore, the Qing Xin Empire's borders would always have 10 generals guarding the 10 borders to prevent enemy invasions. Each of the 10 generals was extremely powerful. They were at the peak of the ultimate 9-wheel emperor realm. Furthermore, because they had been on the battlefield for many years and killed people like flies, the killing intent on their bodies was terrifying. They could also use this killing intent to suppress martial artists. Therefore, although these 10 generals were only at the peak of the ultimate 9-wheel emperor realm, with the killing intent in their bodies and their rich experience, ordinary martial artists in the initial stage of the Xuanzun realm would probably not be a match for these 10 generals. Your subordinates pay their respects to His Majesty the Azure Emperor. The 10 generals in armor suddenly landed in front of the Azure Emperor and knelt on one knee. Their voices were like rolling thunder, resounding through the clouds. No need for formalities. I'll have to trouble the 10 of you in this ranking battle. The Azure Emperor nodded and said rather warmly, "It's our honor to serve your majesty." The 10 generals replied meticulously, Now that the ranking battle has begun, each of you will be in charge of 10 arenas. As for which arena you want, you can choose it yourselves." The Azure Emperor smiled faintly. The 10 generals nodded. With a step, they flew toward the center of the square. The 10 arenas flew and landed in the center of their respective arenas. They looked down at the 10 geniuses below their respective arenas. Boom! A terrifying killing intent burst out from the 10 generals' bodies. The blood-red killing intent was so substantial that it almost filled the entire arena. The faces of the geniuses around the arenas turned ugly when they felt the killing intent. Many of them even turned ghastly pale. Are you trying to intimidate me? You're just a border general. Get out of here. A domineering and cruel voice suddenly rang out from arena number 1. Following which, an unruly figure suddenly flew into the arena. He ignored the killing intent in the surroundings and flew toward the general in the center. Everyone looked over in shock and discovered that the person who had suddenly attacked was the first prince, Huangfu Wudao. The general in Arena Number 1 had not expected such an unforeseen event. Looking at the figure that was flying toward him, a cold light flickered in his eyes. He took a step forward, and boundless killing intent condensed into a long spear that was several feet long. With a loud shout, the long spear in the general's hand flew out like a horse that had escaped its reins. It instantly pierced toward Huangfu Wudao. Insignificant skill. Huangfu Wudao was extremely overbearing. The corners of his mouth held a cold smile. With a wave of his right hand, countless cyclones shot out from within his body. They were dense and looked extremely terrifying. Rumble. The killing intent spear blasted onto the cyclones and was actually directly frozen. With a crack, the terrifying killing intent spear was actually directly shattered into pieces by the cyclones. The general's pupils constricted. He never imagined that Huangfu Wudao's strength would actually be so terrifying. He was actually able to so easily annihilate his killing intent spear. Swoosh. As soon as the killing intent spear was destroyed, Huangfu Wudao's figure instantly arrived before the general. A cruel smile appeared on the corners of his mouth as his right hand formed into a fist and smashed out. Strands of terrifying cyclones covered his fist, causing the air to whistle as if it was being torn apart. The general shouted loudly and similarly smashed out a fist. Blood-red killing intent formed a layer of blood-red scales on his fist. Rumble. The two fists fiercely smashed together. Instantly, a ring-shaped wave of air violently spread out with the two of them as the center. The expressions of the other 9 geniuses around Arena Number 1 changed drastically as they were pushed back by the wave of air. The hard limestone arena was actually unable to withstand the strength of the two people. Dense cracks began to appear on its surface and continuously spread. In the end, the entire arena collapsed. Countless pieces of rock floated up and dust filled the field of vision. What terrifying strength! The surrounding people all revealed expressions of shock. The border general was an expert at the peak of the ultimate ninth wheel emperor realm. With the addition of the killing intent on his body, even an initial stage cultivator of the Xuanzuan realm might not necessarily be a match for this border general. However, the first prince, Huangfu Wudao, was actually able to directly clash with this border general and even faintly gain the upper hand. Thump. Thump. Chapter 734. The battle began. 100 steps away, this sorry figure suddenly stomped on the ground, and the terrifying force practically created an enormous pit of over 10 meters on the ground before he was able to completely stabilize himself. The gazes of everyone moved slightly and converged onto this figure. Their pupils constricted when they noticed that this sorry figure was actually the border general. At this moment, the border general's face was pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His gaze contained a trace of terror as he gazed at the dust before him. The border general had actually fallen into a disadvantageous position in the confrontation earlier, and had even been injured because of it. Huangfu Wudao's strength was actually so terrifying that even the border general was unable to gain the slightest advantage against him. Sump, sump, sump. Dust suffused the air from the ruins of the arena as a figure slowly walked out. Huangfu Wudao stopped 10 meters away from the border general and said in a ghastly voice, "You aren't qualified to preside over my battle. Now fuck off." As soon as these words were spoken, the border general's expression changed slightly. Huangfu Wudao actually didn't give him the slightest bit of face and directly asked him to fuck off. What? Not going to fuck off? Then die. Huangfu Wudao grinned and revealed a row of ghastly white teeth. He stomped his foot and instantly flashed towards the border general, not giving the border general the slightest chance to speak. The border general's expression changed greatly as he suddenly shouted. Countless strands of baleful aura surged out, and the surface of his armor revealed a strange blood-red color. Moreover, the blood-red color was like small snakes that ceaselessly wriggled before finally transforming into sharp blood-red horns. A terrifying and ferocious aura burst out from the border general's body, and it was as if the border general had transformed into a terrifying primeval beast at this moment. Blood beast howl. With a fierce howl, countless strands of baleful aura surged behind the border general and condensed into a terrifying enormous beast that was over 100 meters in size and possessed countless savage blood-red horns. Oh! The terrifying enormous beast roared towards the sky as its front hooves that were like pillars that supported the heavens fiercely dug into the ground. It transformed into a blood-red shadow that flashed towards Huangfu Wudao and instantly arrived before him. The enormous beast claw that was half a man's size clawed towards Huangfu Wudao. Surging howls sounded out in the air, and it seemed extremely horrifying at this moment. The corners of Huangfu Wudao's mouth was filled with a ridiculing smile as he lightly stretched out his right palm. Instantly, countless cyclones that were like whirlpools in water created a terrifying suction force. Rumble! Huangfu Wudao's seemingly insignificant palm lightly struck the enormous beast claw. Following which, the surrounding crowd was astonished to discover that the terrifying blood-colored beast had actually stopped in midair as if it had been frozen. A miserable shriek was immediately emitted from the mouth of the blood-colored giant beast. Subsequently, the mountain-like giant beast exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Countless drops of blood turned into a rain of blood that sprinkled down in a pitter-patter. Huangfu Wudao smiled coldly. With a flick of his sleeve, countless cyclones surrounded his body, leaving his clothes spotless. As soon as the blood-colored enormous beast died, Huangfu Wudao's figure flashed and instantly arrived before the border general. His right palm suddenly pressed down, and countless cyclones transformed into dense air blades that flashed towards the border general below. First Prince, I am the general of the southern border. It was His Majesty who ordered me to host the arena. Do you dare to kill me? The border general raised both of his hands. Instantly, countless baleful auras turned into monstrous waves, blocking the terrifying chi blades above. However, Huangfu Wudao's strength was too strong. He simply couldn't block these chi blades for too long. Once the baleful auras were broken, he would undoubtedly die. I know, but you still have to die. Huangfu Wudao's voice was unquestionable. His right hand pressed down once again, and the power of the chi blades increased by several times. Instantly, the monstrous baleful auras were directly cut apart by the chi blades. Puchi! The chi blades arrived in an instant. The border general didn't even have the chance to make a sound before he was directly torn apart by the sharp chi blades. Not even his bones remained. Do you still plan to fight me in the arena? After killing the border general, Huangfu Wudao's gaze shifted to the 9 geniuses who were also in the first arena. His voice was as cold as the winter of the 12th lunar month. Looking at the border general's corpse that didn't even have a single bone remaining, as well as Huangfu Wudao's cold and terrifying eyes, the other 9 geniuses couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. We forfeit. Without any surprise, the other 9 geniuses in the first arena all chose to forfeit. Huangfu Wudao's strength was too terrifying, and his methods were too cruel. He even dared to kill the border general who was in charge of the competition, let alone them. If they really fought with Huangfu Wudao, their fates would likely be much more miserable than the border general's. 9 pieces of trash. Huangfu Wudao coldly smiled as he indifferently said. As these words came out, the figures of the 9 geniuses who were about to leave paused. They didn't dare to stay in the first arena any longer and left with their tails between their legs. The geniuses in the other 9 arenas naturally saw what had happened in the first arena, and their gazes turned cold. The first prince, Huangfu Wudao, was overbearing and cruel. He even killed the border general who was in charge of the competition and directly threatened the other 9 geniuses to forfeit. He was really too overbearing and unreasonable. The eyes of the 9 generals standing in the center of the other arenas narrowed. Their gazes towards Huangfu Wudao contained a strong sense of dread. The border general that was killed earlier was the commander that guarded the southern border, and his nickname was General Savage Beast. At this moment, his blood actually dyed the arena in the imperial city red. Moreover, Emperor Qing, who stood nearby, didn't say anything when General Savage Beast was killed, and he didn't even stand out. Obviously, Emperor Qing had already tacitly approved of Huangfu Wudao's actions. Li Jin, appoint a new commander of the southern border. Emperor Qing's deep gaze was filled with indifference, and no one was able to guess exactly what he was thinking. The expression of Li Jin, who stood by Emperor Qing's side, turned cold when he heard these words. He knew that Emperor Qing wouldn't pursue the matter with Huangfu Wudao for the death of General Savage Beast. The other geniuses in the first arena forfeited. Huangfu Wudao directly entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Emperor Qing spoke in a clear voice. As soon as these words were spoken, an uproar arose in the surrounding crowd, and everyone looked at Huangfu Wudao with gazes filled with dread. Not only did Emperor Qing not blame Huangfu Wudao for killing the border general, but he also smoothly allowed Huangfu Wudao to enter the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. It was clear that Emperor Qing valued Huangfu Wudao far more than everyone expected. Huangfu Wudao nodded and silently walked to the side. He leaned against a stone pillar and looked indifferently at the geniuses in the other 9 arenas, his eyes filled with domineering disdain. In the 8th arena, Zhuan narrowed his eyes and stared at Huangfu Wudao's figure with a look of intense dread. Huangfu Wudao was very strong. Even if Zhuan used all his trump cards, he still didn't think that he would be Huangfu Wudao's match. It was said that Huangfu Wudao was only at the peak of the ultimate 9th Wheel Emperor stage, but his battle strength was comparable to a late-stage Xuanzuan realm cultivator. This was also why Huangfu Wudao killed the border general as easily as killing a dog. The disturbance in the first arena didn't last for long, and the battles in the other arenas had already begun. In the center of the 8th arena, a middle-aged man with a pale face and no beard was presiding over the battles. He wore silver armor. This man was nicknamed the Silver Dragon General, and he guarded the northern border. He was also at the peak of the ultimate 9th Wheel Emperor stage, and was on par with the Savage Beast General. The Silver Dragon General looked around at the 10 geniuses below the 8th arena with a cold look in his eyes. The battles begin now. I will decide who you will fight. You won't have any objections, right? The Silver Dragon General said indifferently. No. The 10 geniuses shook their heads. The Silver Dragon General nodded and slowly scanned the 10 geniuses with his hawk-like eyes. He suddenly pointed at 2 of them and said, "The 2 of you will start. The rules are simple. You just have to defeat your opponent, no matter what method you use." The gazes of the other 8 geniuses gathered and immediately fell on the 2 geniuses. Then, a trace of surprise appeared in their eyes. One of the 2 people that were pointed out was actually the number 1 genius of the Icebound County, Wen Ao Shui, and the other was actually Zhuo Wen, who had been in the limelight recently. Both of them were very strong, and it would probably be a rather intense battle this time. Zhuan raised his eyebrows. He hadn't expected to be the first to be pointed at. He shrugged his shoulders and leaped onto the arena. Then he looked at Wen Ao Shui, who was below the arena. At this moment, on the stage, a trace of hesitation surfaced on Wen Ao Shui's cold and beautiful face as her white hair fluttered in the wind. She clenched her teeth. She did not expect that she would meet Zhuo Wen, the opponent that she did not want to meet the most. Are you still not coming up? I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't come up, I'll take it as you forfeit. The Silver Dragon General could also see the hesitation on Wen Ao Shui's face. He snorted impatiently. Wen Ao Shui's beautiful eyes flickered. She took a step forward and finally stepped onto the arena. Her cold eyes stared straight at Zhuan. Looks like our luck is pretty good. We actually met again. Zhuan said lazily. Yeah, our luck is pretty good. Wen Ao Shui gritted her teeth and said word by word. The fight between Wen Ao Shui and Zhuan had attracted the attention of everyone in the square. Among them, the Icebound County's County Lord, Profound Ice Man, frowned slightly. He hadn't expected Wen Ao Shui to meet such a difficult opponent like Zhuan. In 3 months, Ao Shui's cultivation has reached the ultimate 7-Wheel Emperor realm. She has a good chance of winning against Zhuan. Profound Ice Man muttered to himself. Wen Ao Shui had worked extremely hard in the past 3 months. She had finally broken through the shackles and reached the initial 7-Wheel Emperor realm. Zhuan's cultivation was only at the same level. Therefore, Profound Ice Man didn't think that Zhuan had a 100% chance of winning against Wen Ao Shui. Then, I'm no longer the same as before. Perhaps the one who will lose this time will be you. Wen Ao Shui snorted. A terrifying aura surged out. She had actually completely unleashed the aura of the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. Her white hair danced in the wind like snowflakes. Oh, you've broken through? Zhuan's eyes narrowed as he felt the aura released by Wen Aoshue. He was rather surprised. Zhuan, you're not the only one who's improved. I'm also improving. We don't know who will win today. As she spoke, Wen Aoshue took a step forward. She was wrapped in cold air as she flew toward Zhuan. Countless snowflakes danced in the air like a fairy. You're only at the initial seven-wheel emperor realm. It's about the same for me. Chapter 735. Chao Yan. The battle between Zhuan and Wen Aoshue had attracted the attention of many people. Wen Aoshue was the number 1 genius of the 8 counties and was ranked 11th on the Green Emperor leaderboard. He was one of the most popular contenders for the top 10. Zhuan was a nobody. However, after the Battle of the 9 Counties, he had single-handedly eliminated many geniuses from the Lihua County. His reputation had gradually risen in the imperial capital and he had become a hot topic. The 2 geniuses that many people thought highly of were going to meet in the first round. This naturally attracted the attention of many people. I wonder who will be the final winner of the battle between Zhuan and Wen Aoshue. It should be Wen Aoshue. It is said that Wen Aoshue has already broken through to the ultimate seven-wheel emperor stage. As for Zhuan, he is not famous. He should not be as strong as Wen Aoshue. No, it is said that Zhuan is also an initial seven-wheel emperor stage practitioner. His strength is not inferior to Wen Aoshue's. It is hard to predict the outcome of the battle between the two. This battle will definitely be a fierce battle. The discussion was like a tsunami, causing a huge uproar in the surrounding square. Most people's gazes were focused on the 8th arena. They were looking forward to the battle between Zhuan and Wen Aoshue. Swoosh! Wen Aoshue's long hair fluttered in the wind. Countless ice crystals revolved around his body like a cold current. It looked extremely terrifying. In an instant, Wen Aoshue launched an attack. She stretched out her slender hand and countless ice crystals were under her control. They turned into a giant ice python that was dozens of feet long. Its waist was as thick as a water bucket. Ice python. With a delicate snort, Wen Aoshue waved her jade-like hand. The frost python raised its head to the sky and let out a shrill hiss. It carried with it an endless amount of cold air as it shot straight toward Zhuan at an extremely fast speed. Zhuan shook his head. He stretched out his right hand and the bone spear in his hand started to spin. Soon after, he threw it out. Swoosh! The bone spear was like an arrow that had been released from a bow. It pierced through the air and rushed towards the ice python. Its speed was much faster than the ice python's. Furthermore, boundless blue spear images appeared around the bone spear as a mysterious power surged out. It was the spear intent that Zhuan had grasped. Bang! The bone spear instantly struck the frost python's forehead. Following that, everyone was shocked to discover that the scales on the surface of the frost python were like paper to the bone spear. In the instant of the collision, the bone spear pierced through the frost python's forehead and continued to fly towards Wen Aoshue. Wen Aoshue's pretty face greatly changed. With just a single spear, all of Wen Aoshue's defenses had been broken. Anyone with a discerning eye could easily see the difference between the two. The first round, Zhuan wins. The Silver Dragon General expressionlessly announced. His gaze fell on the remaining 8 people, and he continued, "Next, Lu Long and Hansen." Zhuan slowly walked down from the arena, and 2 youths walked out from the 8 people below. They looked at each other, and both of them leaped onto the arena. Under the command of the Silver Dragon General, the battle began. At this moment, the surrounding crowd was a little surprised. Originally, they had thought that the battle between Zhuan and Wen Aoshue would be a fierce battle. But in the end, Wen Aoshue was actually eliminated by Zhuan with a single spear strike. This result was a huge contrast to what they had imagined. Feng Yong, who was among the 8 people, narrowed his eyes as he stared at Zhuan's back. His expression began to turn serious. This Zhuan did not seem as weak as he had imagined. No matter what, This Yun is not likely to be a match for me. When we meet, I will make him suffer a fate worse than death." With a cold snort, Feng Yong no longer paid any attention to Zhuon. He was very confident in his own strength. With his cultivation at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor stage and the Feng family's unique secret technique, he believed that even if Zhuon had grasped spear intent, it was unlikely that he would be a match for him. The battle in the arena proceeded in an orderly manner. Soon, the first round of battles ended. Half of the 10 people had been eliminated, and only 5 people were left. These 5 people were Zhuon, Feng Yong, Chao Yan, Lu Long, and Chen Xen. Among them, Lu Long and Chen Xen were geniuses from the Imperial Family and Icebound County respectively. These 2 people were not very strong. They were only Ultimate Emperors, and were considered to be at the bottom of the 5 people. The first round of battles in the other arenas also ended one after another. LV Tao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian, whom Zhuon was concerned about, had all smoothly advanced to the second round. As for the other geniuses from Muqin County, they had all been eliminated in the first round. What was noteworthy was that the number 3 Grand Lily, number 4 Murong Zhan, number 6 Guisheng, and number 10 Huangfu Wuji had all chosen to end the first round of battles by fighting 1 against 9. They had fought against 9 geniuses by themselves, and all 4 of them had won. In other words, after the first round had ended, the 4 of them had already stood out from the rest and smoothly obtained a spot in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list. The Azure Emperor, who was standing on the high platform in the plaza, nodded in appreciation at the method the 4 of them had adopted. However, compared to Huangfu Wudao's method of directly killing the border general, there was still a gap between the 4 of them. After all, the border general was a powerhouse at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Only Huangfu Wudao could kill such a powerhouse. No one else could accomplish such a magnificent feat currently. A total of 5 people had advanced to the top 10. They were Huangfu Wudao, Huangfu Wuji, Grand Lily, Murong Zhan, and Guisheng. At this time, the 5 of them had already been summoned back to the high platform by the Azure Emperor. They were silently watching the remaining 5 arenas below. The second round soon began. There were 5 people left, so they had to draw lots. One of them would be given a bye, and the remaining 4 would fight in pairs. After drawing lots, the bye was given to the 8th seeded contestant, Feng Yong. Holding the bye bamboo stick, Feng Yong slowly walked to the side of the arena. As he passed by Zhuon, he sneered in a low voice, "Little bastard, I'll let you be happy for a while. Once the group finals begin, your luck will come to an end. Whose luck is better than dog shit? You can even draw a bye. Your good luck will be ended by me in the group finals," Zhuo retorted sarcastically. Feng Yong narrowed his eyes and coldly snorted, "Then we'll see. When the time comes, I'll make you kneel in front of me." After speaking, Feng Yong directly passed by Zhuo and went to a corner. He quietly stared at Zhuo's figure on the 8th arena, his eyes full of gloomy coldness. "You two come up and fight." Feng Yong was given a bye. The Silver Dragon General pointed at Lu Long and Chen Xen in the arena and lightly said, "You two come up and fight first." Lu Long and Chen Xen's eyes flashed when they heard this. They nodded and jumped onto the arena, staring at each other. Below the arena, Chao Yan, who had been silent, suddenly raised his foot and walked toward Zhuon. He stood 1 meter away from Zhuon and lightly said, "In our next fight, you forfeit." Hearing this, Zhuon narrowed his eyes and looked at Chao Yan as if he was looking at an idiot. He indifferently replied, "You want me to forfeit? Who do you think you are?" Zhuo's words immediately caused Chao Yan's face to darken. He coldly said, "Your name is Zhuon. I know that. Moreover, your cultivation should be at the early stage of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. Moreover, you've grasped spear intent. According to true battle strength, your strength should be comparable to the intermediate stage of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. However, my strength has already reached the advanced stage of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor realm. I have the strength to fight Feng Yong, but you have no chance." Hearing this, Zhuon sneered in his heart. He had already guessed Chao Yan's thoughts. In Chao Yan's opinion, Zhuo's strength was too weak and had no chance against Feng Yong. Moreover, Chao Yan's strength was very close to Feng Yong's. Feng Yong probably didn't want to exhaust too much essence force on Zhuowen. After all, Chao Yan's cultivation was lower than Feng Yong's. If he used too much origin energy on Zhuowen, the loss would outweigh the gain. At that time, he wouldn't have much of a chance against Feng Yong. Therefore, Chao Yan wanted Zhuowen to forfeit. Have you thought it through? I am the #1 genius of the Chao clan. There is no benefit in offending the Chao clan, Chao Yan said loftily. In his opinion, Yun was from Muqing County and came from a humble background. On the other hand, the Chao clan was one of the 5 great clans and had great influence. He didn't believe that Zhuowen would risk offending the Chao clan by rejecting him. Chapter 736. 5-wheel adamantium palm. Chao Yan's eyes narrowed when he heard this. He said coldly, "You want me to scram?" "What? Are you still not going to scram?" Zhuowen said expressionlessly. Good. You've got guts. Yun, let's see how you'll get out of this embarrassing situation when you face me later. Chao Yan returned to his seat after saying this. However, his eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Tun. In Chao Yan's opinion, Yun was just too ignorant. He knew that Chao Yan was the #1 genius of the Chao clan, yet he still didn't give him any face. He would definitely teach Zhuowen a lesson when the two of them faced each other later. Lu Long and Chen Xian's battle was extremely intense. Both of them were ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators with similar strength, so they were evenly matched. This caused the blood of the spectators to boil. A grunt rang out. Chen Xian was a step too late. Lu Long had found an opening and punched Chen Xian in the chest. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying out of the ring. Lu Long wins. The Silver Dragon General replied expressionlessly. Lu Long was in a rather sorry state at this moment. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth and his face was pale. However, his face was filled with excitement. After Lu Long left the ring, the Silver Dragon General looked at Zhuowen and Chao Yan below the ring. He said indifferently, "It's your turn now. Come up." Chao Yan sneered and leapt onto the ring. He stared coldly at Zhuowen and shouted, "Why aren't you coming up to die?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and leapt onto the ring as well. He said coldly, "Did you just say that you wanted me to die?" Chao Yan snorted coldly, "What? Do you have a problem with that? Fists and legs have no eyes. It's not like killing you is a big deal. Fists and legs have no eyes. If I beat you to death, would you have no complaints?" Zhuowen said coldly. Zhuowen knew that Chao Yan was targeting him because he had rejected his request. Moreover, Chao Yan's strong killing intent caused Zhuowen's heart to turn even colder. He was very clear that Chao Yan really intended to kill him. "Since you're heartless, then don't blame me for being unjust." Thinking of this, Zhuowen's eyes also surged with a cold light. He, Zhuowen, was not a person who stirred up trouble, but he was also not someone who would let others bully him. The confrontation between Zhuowen and Chao Yan attracted the attention of many people. The fact that Zhuowen had defeated Wen Ao Shui in the first round had already attracted the attention of many people. They could all sense that Zhuowen had the strength to be ranked in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking list. He had the potential to be ranked in the top 10. Chao Yan was originally ranked 10th on the Azure Emperor ranking list, 1 place ahead of Wen Ao Shui. His strength was also not to be underestimated. Although Zhuowen could defeat Wen Ao Shui, Chao Yan's strength was much stronger than Wen Ao Shui's. Perhaps Zhuowen had a chance of defeating Chao Yan, but it was definitely not very high. Feng Yong leaned against a stone pillar as he stared at the two figures in the arena. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he muttered to himself, "Chao Yan's cultivation has also reached the late stage of the 7-wheel Emperor realm. It will be very difficult for Zhuowen to defeat Chao Yan. I originally wanted to teach this Zhuowen a lesson, but now it seems like it's not very possible. However, the enmity of killing my Feng family's disciple will not be forgotten so easily. When the ranking tournament ends, this kid will still have to die." As he spoke to hear, Feng Yong's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He couldn't forget the scene of that little bastard Zhuowen killing Feng Xiang in front of everyone 3 months ago. At that time, he had solemnly vowed in front of Feng Xiang to regain face for him. But he never imagined that Feng Xiang would die in front of him. How could Feng Yong not be angry in his heart? On the high platform, the 5 people who had already entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor ranking list also noticed that Zhuan and Chao Yan were up against each other. The 5 of them all had different expressions on their faces. Huangfu Wudao's expression was cold, overbearing, and ruthless. Grand Lily and Huangfu Wuji had mocking expressions. Murong Zhan had a thoughtful expression, but Guosheng frowned. This Zhuan is sure to lose. Chao Yan's cultivation is already at the late stage of the 7-wheel emperor realm. His strength is much stronger than that little bastard Zhuan's. Huangfu Wuji suddenly said in a cold voice. That's not necessarily true. Zhuan has also grasped the advanced spear intent. So what if his cultivation is lower than Chao Yan's? His strength might not be any worse than Chao Yan's. Guosheng suddenly retorted. So what if he grasps spear intent? Zhuan's cultivation is only at the early stage of the 7-wheel emperor realm. He is 2 small realms lower than Chao Yan. Even if he has spear intent, it is unlikely that he is Chao Yan's match. Grand Lily suddenly interjected. Everyone, there is no need to argue. Who will win and who will lose will only be known after the 2 of them truly fight. It is too early to discuss this. Murong Zhan, who had not spoken, suddenly spoke up with a smile, as if he were the peacemaker. As Murong Zhan spoke, Huangfu Wuji and the others tacitly fell silent. Their eyes were filled with dread as they looked at Murong Zhan. The Murong family was the strongest of the 5 great families. They had a deep background and produced many talented individuals. This Murong Zhan was the #1 genius of the Murong family. His strength was unfathomable, and he was ranked 2nd on the Azure Emperor ranking list. Although Murong Zhan seemed to be smiling, this person was a classic example of a sinister person. He might smile in front of you, but he might stab you in the back. It was impossible to guard against him. Even though Huangfu Wuji, Grand Lily, and Guosheng were powerful, and the forces behind them were not weak, they were still afraid of Murong Zhan. It was not only because the Murong family was powerful, but also because Murong Zhan was too dangerous. On the number 8 combat ring, the Silver Dragon General glanced indifferently at Zhuo Wen and Chao Yan, who were facing each other from afar, and then he said, "Begin the battle now. Those who leave the arena will be eliminated." As soon as the Silver Dragon General spoke, Chao Yan gave a loud shout and released all of his aura. His clothes fluttered without any wind. "One move. Listen well. I can kill you in 1 move." After he finished speaking, Chao Yan took a step forward. His entire body turned into a shadow as he rushed toward Zhuan. In an instant he arrived above Zhuan. 5-wheel hard copper palm. Chao Yan shouted. He stretched out his right hand and slammed it down. Suddenly, countless amounts of yuan power gathered behind him and condensed into 5 terrifying copper wheels. The 5 copper wheels rotated in the air, releasing a terrifying aura that was as vast as a mountain. This Chao Yan used his best move, the 5-ring hard copper palm, right from the start. Is he planning to kill Zhuo Wen directly? Looking at the 5 copper wheels in the air, Feng Yong's smile widened. The 5-wheel hard copper palm was Chao Yan's unique skill. Its power was terrifying. Feng Yong believed that under this attack, Zhuan would be badly injured even if he didn't die. Everyone in the square stared at the 5 copper wheels that had suddenly appeared in the air. Their expressions were extremely interesting. What a terrifying attack! Is Chao Yan planning to end the battle in 1 move? This is the Chao family's 5-wheel hard copper palm. Although Chao Yan is a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist, when he uses this attack, even a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist would not dare to casually take it head-on. That Zhuan is in danger. The 5-wheel hard copper palm is very terrifying. An uproar rang out around the square like a tsunami. They had all recognized the 5-wheel hard copper palm that Chao Yan had used. Above the 5 copper wheels, Chao Yan's face was full of self-satisfaction. He looked down at Zhuo as if he was looking at a dead man. As the successor of the Chao family, he was well aware of the power of this move. Before him, Yuan was only an early-stage Ultimate Emperor realm martial artist. Under this move, he would definitely die. With a loud shout, Chao Yen immediately controlled the 5 huge copper wheels and suddenly shot towards the arena below. The copper wheels cut through the air, creating a powerful airflow that actually caused the gravity within the arena to increase by several times. Quite a number of nearby practitioners even began to miserably stumble and lose their balance. In the center of the arena, Zhuan stood quietly. He raised his head and stared at the 5 copper wheels in the air. A faint smile appeared on his face. Rumble! An extremely terrifying aura spread out. Zhuan's clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. The surrounding space was torn apart and turned into countless fragments. Zhuan had finally completely released his true cultivation. The aura of a peak Ultimate Emperor realm martial artist? In the air, Chao Yen, who had been very pleased with himself, could not help but exclaim when he saw the aura that Zhuan had released. This spear has a soul. It's called Spear Intent, Zhuan muttered softly. The bone spear in his hand trembled. Countless spear shadows that constantly swam around like tadpoles spread out from Zhuan's body. They formed a terrifying spear intent domain around him. Zhuan grasped the shaft of the bone spear with his right hand and suddenly threw it. The bone spear immediately emitted a sharp sound and shot towards the sky. Countless spear shadows spread out in layers, forming a huge blue spear seal. Rumble! The blue spear seal formed by spear intent was extremely terrifying. It blasted against the 5 copper wheels in the air. Instantly, a terrifying explosion set off. Immediately after, the 5 copper wheels with terrifying power were shattered by the blue spear's seal like paper. Puchi! In the air, Chao Yen spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated dozens of steps. His face was filled with shock. His 5 copper wheels had been broken just like that. How was this possible? The surroundings also fell into a strange silence. Everyone stared blankly at the 5 copper wheels that had been broken. Originally, when Chao Yen used the 5 copper steel palms, no one was optimistic about Zhuan. But now, Zhuan had used his true strength to completely shatter everyone's contempt. After the 5 copper wheels were broken, a figure shot out from the center of the arena like a rocket and instantly appeared in front of Chao Yen. It was Zhuan, who was ready to attack. The moment the 5 copper wheels were broken, Zhuan had already made his move. Nirvana of the Great Sun. Destruction. Zhuan shouted coldly. His body was covered in golden light. His right palm mercilessly swept towards Chao Yen at an extremely fast speed. Damn it! You want to defeat me? Zhuan, you still can't do it. Chao Yan's face was gloomy. His hands suddenly shot out and formed a green Yuan Qi wall in front of him. Break for me. Zhuan completely ignored the Yuan Qi wall. With a slash of his right palm, the Yuan Qi wall instantly crumbled inch by inch. As soon as the Yuan Qi wall was broken, Zhuan's right hand suddenly stretched out and instantly grabbed Chao Yan's neck as if he was holding a chicken. Chapter 737. Bending the law for personal gain. Zhuan stood quietly in the center of the arena while Chao Yen was lifted off the ground like a little chick. His face was red and his eyes were filled with grievance. Chao Yen, who was ranked 10th on the Azure Emperor leaderboard and was at the advanced stage of the 7-wheel Emperor realm, was a lofty and unreachable existence to many people. Yet now, he was being held by Zhuan in such a humiliating manner without being able to resist at all. Silence. The surroundings of the entire arena had descended into a deathly silence that could not be hidden. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the arena where the figure standing proudly with Chao Yen in his hand was. The shock in their eyes was just like a tsunami as it spread outwards. The number 1 genius of the Chao family, Chao Yen, is being lifted by Zhuan just like that? One of the people in the square licked his dry lips. His eyes were already filled with shock. The expressions of the people around him were not much better than this person. Feng Yong, who had been leaning against a stone pillar, suddenly stood up. His eyes narrowed as he stared at Zhuan. He said in a low voice, Zhuan has also reached the peak of the 7-wheel Emperor realm? At this moment, The aura surging out of Zhuowen's body was like a monstrous tsunami. It spread throughout the entire arena, and the huge bluestone arena beneath his feet began to buzz and tremble. It seemed like it would not be able to hold on any longer. This aura was not any weaker than Feng Yong's. Zhuon had also broken through to the peak of the Seven-Wheel Emperor realm. How can he be so fast? This kid was only at the initial stage of the Seven-Wheel Emperor realm 3 months ago. It has only been 3 months, but he has already reached the peak of the Seven-Wheel Emperor realm. Feng Yong's lips quivered as he finally spat out these words. If Zhuon was still at the initial stage of the Seven-Wheel Emperor realm, he would have a 100% chance of winning against Yuan. However, Yuan had improved too quickly. His cultivation was already on par with his. Furthermore, he had the terrifying spear will. Feng Yong knew that Zhuon, who possessed spear intent and whose cultivation was not weak, had become extremely difficult to deal with for him. Now, Feng Yong even had a trace of hesitation. The outcome of his fight with Zhuon had already become unknown. On the high platform, Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily's pupils shrank at the same time. Zhuon had suddenly erupted with the strength of a peak Seven-Wheel Emperor. This was beyond their expectations. Chao Yan has lost. Guixing crossed his arms across his chest, glancing behind him at the ugly complexions of Huangfu Wuji and Grand Lily. Murong Zhan's feminine face revealed a rare look of contemplation. He looked at Zhuon with a strange gaze. Huangfu Wudao still looked straight ahead, his eyes slightly narrowed, as if nothing could move him and make him open his eyes to pay attention. Behind the high platform, there was still a long and narrow table with fine wine placed on it. Within the throne room, there were constantly young and beautiful maids carrying trays of delicious food. In the center, the Azure Emperor sat silently. The other powerful beings also sat in other positions on the table. The lords of the 8 large counties sat on the left side of the table, while the 5 family heads of the Imperial Capital County and the Azure Dragon Branch Palace masters sat on the right side. At a glance, there were nearly 20 people. Almost all of the powerful beings on the table were 4 revered sovereigns. They represented the most respected peak powerhouses in the entire Qingxian Empire. Chao Yan's defeat was naturally seen by these powerful beings. Sitting on the right side of the table was a short old man. His sharp gaze gradually darkened, and his expression turned ugly. This short old man was the current head of the Chao family, Chao Ji. His strength was extremely terrifying, and he was also a 4 revered sovereigns' powerhouse. Chao Ji, it seems that your Chao Yan's cultivation is not up to par. He actually lost to a genius from another county. Sitting beside Chao Ji was a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes. At this moment, this middle-aged man spoke in a mocking tone. Feng Tian, don't be complacent too early. It won't be that easy for your Feng Yong to defeat this in. Moreover, I heard that your Feng family's genius is called Feng Xiang. He was killed by this Zhuon, right? As the head of the Feng family, your family's genius was killed, and the murderer is now at large. As the head of the Feng family, you're nothing much, huh? Chao Ji was not to be outdone. He mocked and ridiculed, causing Feng Tian's expression to gradually turn gloomy. You don't have to worry about this. Our Feng family's people are not so easy to kill. I will definitely not let this kid leave the imperial capital alive. It's just that the time is not right yet, Feng Tian said indifferently. In the arena, Yuan lifted Chao Yan with his right hand. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He said indifferently, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and apologize to me, and I'll let you go. Chao Yan's gaze was filled with shock and anger. He was shocked that Zhuon was so powerful. He was angry that this kid actually lifted him off the ground in such an impudent manner, and even asked him to kneel down and apologize to him. How could he do such a humiliating thing? Zhuon, I'm the son of the first wife of the Chao family. What do you dare to do to me? Chao Yan still did not believe that Zhuon would dare to kill him. After all, he had the colossal Chao family behind him. If Zhuon killed him, then the final result would only be a fight to the death. Are you still trying to show off your family background? In my opinion, other than being able to use your family background to suppress others, you're a complete and utter piece of trash. I don't care what your Chow family is like. You only have two choices now. Either kneel down and apologize, or die. As he spoke, Yun increased the strength of his right hand. Chow Yen could not help but roll his dead fish eyes and cough continuously. His originally arrogant gaze was now replaced by shock and fear. This Yuan really planned to kill him and was not just talking about it. Little bastard! Let Chow Yen go and you win this round. Chow Ji, who was sitting on the table, naturally saw Chow Yan's strange state clearly. Especially when he saw that Zhuan not only did not let Chow Yen go, but also increased the strength of his grip. This made Chow Ji both shocked and furious. This Zhuan did not know how to appreciate kindness. Could it be that he still wanted to kill Chow Yen? Chow family head, aren't you meddling too much? Elders like you can't casually interfere in this arena battle. Holding Chow Yen, Zhuan tilted his head and looked at Chow Ji, who was on the high platform, and said coldly, "You." Chow Ji's face changed slightly. Where did this Zhuan get the courage to speak to him like this? Chow Ji's lungs were about to explode from anger. Just as Zhuan and Chow Ji were talking, a sound of something breaking through the air suddenly swept out from the arena and flew directly toward Zhuan. Zhuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of an ominous feeling rose in his heart. The sound of something breaking through the air was too fast, and Zhuan only had time to use the Nirvana Varokana. His body became golden and as hard as iron and stone. Boom! Just as he used the Nirvana Varokana, the sound of something breaking through the air was already whistling in Zhuan's ears. A strong wind had already enveloped Zhuan's entire body. Ding! A sound of metal clashing suddenly resounded. The sound of something breaking through the air instantly blasted Zhuan's chest. The terrifying power almost caused Zhuan to retreat continuously, and he also let go of Chow Yen in his hand. He could not even take care of himself. Boom! Finally, he stomped on the edge of the arena, and cracks appeared on the ground at the edge of the arena. Zhuan finally stopped his body. At the same time, Zhuan finally saw that the thing that had blasted his chest was actually a huge shining halberd. Waves of terrifying pressure flowed out from the halberd. What? A mouthful of blood suddenly spat out, and Zhuan knelt on one knee on the ground. His gaze was gloomy as he stared at the figure before him, and he said in a low and cold voice, "Feng Yong, you're really despicable and shameless." This shining halberd was precisely shot out by Feng Yong. Feng Yong took advantage of the gap between Zhuan and Chow Ji to take the initiative to launch a sneak attack. Zhuan was utterly caught off guard, and Feng Yong actually drilled through empty air. Below the arena, Feng Yong's eyes narrowed, and his expression was slightly surprised. The halberd he shot out was a top-grade Earth-rank spirit treasure, yet it was actually unable to pierce through Zhuan's body. It could be seen that Zhuan's body was extraordinarily tough. Sush! Feng Yong suddenly flashed onto the arena and said indifferently, "There's no rule in the group stage that only those who fight in the arena must fight. It's completely reasonable for me to make a move. Could it be that you have some objections?" As soon as Feng Yong's words came out, the rest of the people in the square began to discuss spiritedly. They all looked at Feng Yong with a trace of disdain, but no one spoke out. Not to mention the strength of the Feng clan behind Feng Yong, Feng Yong's words weren't without reason. There were indeed no rules in the group stage, and everything was decided by the general presiding over the arena. This was similar to how Galanyi, Guosheng, and the others chose to fight 1 against 9 to obtain a spot in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. The rules were flexible. However, Zhuan and Chow Yan's battle hadn't ended, and Zhuan was in a relaxed state when he was talking to Chow Ji. It was indeed a little unreasonable for Feng Yong to suddenly make a move. He's breaking the rules, right? Zhuan's eyes were gloomy. He had finally witnessed Feng Yong's shamelessness. He turned his head and stared at the Silver Dragon General, who was standing at the edge of the arena without saying a word. Feng Yong is right. There's no rule in the group stage that participants below the arena can't make a move. You were careless, so you can't blame others. The Silver Dragon General's voice was indifferent. He was actually openly supporting Feng Yong's nonsense. Zhuan's face instantly turned gloomy. The Silver Dragon General's words actually supported Feng Yong's sneak attack just now. This made Zhuowen's heart turn cold. The smile on Feng Yong's face deepened. Others might not know, but he knew that the Silver Dragon General was a member of the Feng clan. Therefore, the Silver Dragon General had deliberately come to the 8th arena to preside over the competition so that Feng Yong wouldn't have to worry about entering the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. On the table, Lu Hantian suddenly crushed the wine cup in his hand. His eyes were incomparably cold as he said indifferently, "Your Majesty, the Silver Dragon General is bending the law for personal gain." Feng Yong even openly launched a sneak attack. "Are you not going to do anything about it?" The Azure Emperor's expression was calm and indifferent from the beginning until the end. He looked at Lu Hantian, who didn't look too good, and said, "There are no rules or restrictions in the arena this time. Everything depends on the performance of the participants. The so-called bending the law for personal gain and the so-called sneak attack are all the same to me. As long as you can stand until the end, you are the winner, no matter what method you use. I only look at the results, not the process. It's useless for you to say all this to me. If you're worried about Zhuan, you can ask him to forfeit." The Azure Emperor didn't say anything else. He slowly sipped his wine with a smile on his face. Chapter 738. Chao Yan's death. Lu Hantian understood Zhuowen's character very well. It would be better to have him commit suicide than to have him forfeit. Therefore, it was unrealistic to have Zhuowen forfeit. Feng Tian, who was sitting on the right side of the table, revealed a smile. He was originally worried that Zhuowen was too strong and that Feng Yong would have a hard time dealing with him. Now that Yun had been struck by Feng Yong's halberd and suffered heavy injuries, Feng Yong was unharmed. This time, Feng Yong's chances of victory were undoubtedly much higher. In the arena, Feng Yong slowly stood a few dozen meters in front of Zhuowen. He crossed his arms and looked at Zhuowen with ridicule. On the other side of the arena, Chao Yan, who had escaped from Zhuowen's palm, did not leave the arena. Instead, he stared at Zhuowen. With a cough, Zhuowen slowly stood up. He stared at Feng Yong and coldly said, "As expected of the number 1 genius of the Feng family. You can even use such despicable methods in such a shameless manner. Your skin has already reached the level of shamelessness. Winner takes all. Winner takes all. Then, what's the point of saying all this? The right to speak will always be in the hands of the winner. No matter what you say, you will still lose in the end." Feng Yong did not take Zhuowen's words seriously. The ridicule in his eyes became even more intense. Right now, he was already in an invincible position. "Brother Chao, you've already lost. Why are you still on the arena?" Feng Yong's gaze suddenly converged on Chao Yan, who was not far away. Chao Yan's eyelids twitched. He indifferently said, "Brother Feng, this kid humiliated me just now. I can't swallow this grudge. I won't fight with you for the strongest person in this group. You and I will work together to kill this kid. I want to kill this kid with my own hands." Speaking until here, the killing intent in Chao Yan's eyes seemed to have materialized. He stared at Zhuowen with an extremely unfriendly gaze. He must kill this little bastard Zhuowen with his own hands. Chao Yan would never forget the humiliation just now. If he didn't kill Zhuowen with his own hands, he wouldn't be able to rest easy. So that's how it is. Since Brother Chao is so enthusiastic, it would be unsatisfactory if I don't agree. Let's join hands and kill this kid on this stage. Feng Yong raised his eyebrows. He did not expect Chao Yan to suggest joining forces. It seemed that Chao Yan's hatred for Zhuowen was very deep. Although Feng Yong had successfully ambushed Zhuowen with his halberd, causing Zhuowen to be injured, he was after all a centipede that was dead but not paralyzed. Feng Yong was still very wary of Zhuowen. Now that Chao Yan had taken the initiative to join forces, Feng Yong's confidence in dealing with Zhuowen had increased by a few %. Why wouldn't he, Feng Yong, be happy? Feng Yong and Chao Yan did not purposely lower their voices when they spoke. Hence, everyone in the square heard them clearly. Zhuowen had already been injured by Feng Yong's sneak attack. Now, Feng Yong actually wanted to join forces with Chao Yan to deal with Zhuowen. This battle had already lost its fairness. However, no one stepped forward to say anything. Emperor Qing had said that this battle would use an elimination system. No matter what method one used, as long as one eliminated the other contestants and became the strongest in the group, it would be fine. Moreover, the Silver Dragon General, who was in charge of Arena number 8, did not say anything. Hence, no one would say anything. Silver Dragon General. Chao Yen has already been eliminated by me, right? Don't tell me that he can still stay on the stage and join forces with Feng Yong? Zhuo Wen's gaze turned even colder as he stared at the Silver Dragon General not far away. Humph. If you think it's unfair, you can forfeit. I didn't force you to stay on the stage. The Silver Dragon General snorted coldly, ignoring Zhuo Wen's opinion. Zhuo Wen took a deep breath. Although he knew that the Silver Dragon General was completely biased towards Feng Yong, Zhuo Wen's heart was still filled with anger when he heard the Silver Dragon General's words. Zhuo Wen. It's useless even if you forfeit today. You're dead anyway. Do you really think that you can walk out of the imperial capital alive? Chao Yan's eyes were filled with coldness as he spoke coldly. His hatred for Zhuo Wen was like a huge wave. He wanted nothing more than to tear Zhuo Wen into pieces right now. Even if he could not kill Zhuo Wen this time, he would not let Zhuo Wen go. Chao Yan, I didn't plan to kill you. Unfortunately, your mouth stinks even more than dog fart. A person like you is simply scum. Zhuo Wen snorted coldly. He silently circulated the origin energy in his body. With a stomp of his foot, he suddenly shot towards Chao Yan at his maximum speed. Brother Feng, let's kill this guy together. Chao Yan's eyes narrowed when he saw Zhuo Wen rushing towards him. He shouted loudly, but he did not charge forward. Instead, he took a small step back and stood behind Feng Yong. Zhuo Wen was a peak ultimate 7-wheel emperor. Although he had been injured by Feng Yong's sneak attack earlier, he was still not someone that Chao Yan could face head-on. Therefore, he could only rely on Feng Yong. Naturally, Feng Yong saw Chao Yan's actions. However, he did not care too much about it. After all, Chao Yan was not very strong. He had never thought of relying on Chao Yan. Little bastard, you must die today. A sinister smile appeared on Feng Yong's face. With a stomp of his foot, the halberd that had been stabbed into the ground nearby immediately appeared in his hand. A terrifying aura burst out. His long hair fluttered as he also charged toward Zhuo Wen. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. In the blink of an eye, Zhuo Wen and Feng Yong had collided. Countless sparks continuously spilled out in all directions from the collision between the two. The collision of the bone spear and the halberd produced a stimulating sound that was like the sound of a great bell. It resounded throughout the entire space. In just an instant, the two of them had exchanged dozens of blows. Every blow was fatal and terrifying. In the eyes of the crowd, the two of them seemed to have turned into two illusory figures that could not be seen clearly at all. The only thing that could be seen clearly was the countless sparks that were produced when the two weapons collided. This proved that the two of them were engaged in an intense battle. Clang, clang, clang. The two of them fought from the ground to the sky, and then from the sky to the ground. The sound of metal clashing reverberated around the entire arena. It was noisy and ear-piercing. Clang. Sparks flew everywhere as the two of them clashed once again. Then, a figure fell from the sky in a sorry state and smashed into the center of the arena. Rumble. There was a loud sound like muffled thunder. A human-shaped hole was smashed into the center of the arena. A figure struggled out of it in a sorry state. When the crowd looked over, they were shocked to discover that this sorry figure was actually Zhuo Wen, who had been extremely powerful just a moment ago. At this moment, Zhuo Wen was in an extremely sorry state. His hair was disheveled, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His qi and blood were boiling. Although Zhuo Wen's physical body was indeed very strong, Feng Yong's sneak attack earlier had caused Zhuo Wen to suffer immeasurable injuries. When Zhuo Wen was fighting with Feng Yong, he had been suppressing his injuries. This also caused Zhuo Wen to be unable to display his full strength. He had been suppressed by Feng Yong all this time. Earlier, Feng Yong had found a flaw and broken through his defense, mercilessly knocking him down from the sky. Puchi. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Zhuo Wen's gaze turned extremely gloomy. Now, he only felt the qi and blood in his body boiling. His entire body was exhausted, and the suppressed injuries were showing signs of worsening. Not long after Zhuan landed on the ground, the sound of something breaking through the air came from the other side of the arena. When Chao Yan, who was originally watching, saw Zhuowen's sorry state, he did not hesitate to rush over to Zhuowen. Zhuowen, I, Chao Yan, am not someone you can afford to offend. Since you have offended me, then you will not be able to escape this calamity. Now die. Chao Yan instantly flew above Zhuowen. A cold light flashed out from his sleeve. He actually took out a long sword with a cold light and pierced toward Zhuowen's forehead. Looking at such a shameless Chao Yan, the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes became even denser. This Chao Yan's shamelessness was something Zhuowen had never seen before in his life. Boom! Zhuowen waved his right hand. The green coffin behind him buzzed and flew out, blocking in front of him. Ding! Chao Yan's long sword touched the surface of the green coffin, and then his entire body stopped. This green coffin is so hard. Chao Yan's pupils constricted, and he could not help but whisper. A bone spear suddenly shot out from behind the green coffin, catching Chao Yan off guard. Under Chao Yan's astonished gaze, it instantly pierced through his abdomen, causing a large amount of blood to spurt out. You actually dare to kill me? Chao Yan's gaze stared at the bone spear in his abdomen, and he still muttered to himself in disbelief. A despicable and shameless person like you deserves to die. You deserve to die. Zhuowen's voice was gloomy and cold like the winter moon, and every word resounded in Chao Yan's ears. Chapter 739. Defeat. Feng Yong. Chao Ji's face turned even uglier. One could imagine how Chao Ji felt after seeing Chao Yan die in front of him. Lu Hantian, don't force me to make a move, Chao Ji said sinisterly. You want to make a move? Come. I will accompany you to the end. Lu Hantian rolled up his sleeves and sneered. A terrifying aura poured out of Lu Hantian's body, and cracks appeared in the space around the table. Chao Ji's eyes narrowed when he felt Lu Hantian's terrifying aura. He was shocked and said, Heavenly Venerate? Just the aura that flowed out was enough to cause the surrounding space to crack. This was not something an ordinary fourth Venerate could do. Chao Ji's face turned ugly. Lu Hantian's strength was beyond his expectations. Although he was the head of the Chao family and was also a fourth Venerate, he had only reached the third level of the fourth Venerate, the Golden Venerate. He was still one step away from the Heavenly Venerate. Come. I'm right here. Let's play. Lu Hantian's current appearance was no different from a hoodlum. He rolled up his sleeves and waved at Chao Ji provocatively. This scene made the other Almighties roll their eyes. This Lu Hantian was too weird. How could a Heavenly Venerate not have the demeanor of a Heavenly Venerate? Alright, the two of you can stop messing around. Come here. The Qing Emperor finally spoke from the center of the table. Although his voice was soft, it was like thunder in everyone's ears. It was shocking and ear-piercing, causing everyone's minds to buzz. As soon as the Saiyan Emperor spoke, Lu Hantian and Chao Ji no longer dared to make a fuss and returned to their respective seats. Chao Ji's gaze was extremely cold as he stared at Zhuowen's figure in the arena. His face was ferocious. Chao Yan was his great-grandson and the most talented person among the many disciples of the Chao family. If Chao Yan did not die, he would definitely reach the fourth Venerate realm and might even surpass his senior. But now, Chao Yan had been killed by Zhuowen. All of Chao Ji's hopes were dashed. He hated Zhuowen to the core and wished he could cut Zhuowen into pieces. From the moment Chao Yan took the initiative to attack Zhuowen to Zhuowen's death, it was in the blink of an eye. Even Feng Yong, who was floating in the air, did not expect that Zhuowen. You killed Chao Yan? Feng Yong still couldn't believe it and couldn't help but ask. Feng Yong. Feng Yong. Zhuowen's eyes were bloodshot as he stomped his feet. The side effect of the blood-sucking great skill had already appeared. Chao Yan's resentment after his death entered Zhuowen's body and turned into an endless baleful aura. Waves of blood-red baleful aura gushed out from the countless pores on Zhuowen's body. They were like blood-red bubbles that surrounded Jun. At this moment, Jun was like a wild beast. What a terrifying, baleful aura. At the edge of the arena, the Silver Dragon General narrowed his eyes as a trace of astonishment appeared on his face. The baleful aura gushing out from Zhuowen's body was even more terrifying than that of a border general like him. The Silver Dragon General could not help but feel that it was inconceivable. Boom! Zhuowen suddenly slapped the green coffin. The green coffin, which was about 10 feet in size, suddenly crashed to the ground and blocked in front of Zhuowen. In an instant, Zhuowen opened the demon-suppressing green coffin by a third. A terrifying pressure poured out. Under this pressure, countless rocks in the arena floated up as if weightless. Feng Yong, get down here and accept your death. Feng Yong, get down here and accept your death. Zhuowen shouted loudly. His voice was like thunder that exploded in the air. Countless echoes resounded in the air above the arena, causing many people in the surroundings to feel a sense of pride and passion as if they were facing death unflinchingly. Feng Yong narrowed his eyes as he stared at Zhuowen below. He was still somewhat bewildered. The more he looked at Zhuowen, the stranger he felt. Clearly, this kid was struck to the ground by him. He should be more injured than before. Why did his complexion look better than before? How could Feng Yong know that Zhuowen possessed the blood-sucking great skill that the blood demon had imparted to him? It could instantly absorb the blood essence of living beings to quickly replenish his body and speed up his recovery. Now that Zhuowen's injuries were much better than before, and the injuries in his body had been completely suppressed, Zhuowen naturally wanted to take revenge on Feng Yong. Empty bravado. Feng Yong coldly snorted. He was certain that Zhuowen was empty bravado. With a stomp of his foot, his entire body descended like a meteor. His speed soared to the extreme. Flood Dragon Halberd. With a low shout, Feng Yong instantly arrived above Zhuowen. With a shake of his right hand, ink-black energy surged out of the halberd. It actually condensed into a flood dragon several hundred feet long behind Feng Yong. As Feng Yong's halberd descended, the massive flood dragon instantly enveloped Zhuowen's tiny figure. Advance and the proud dragon will regret. Retreat and the thistle will grow. Proud dragon style, break for me. With continuous footsteps, Zhuowen grasped the dragon scale tyrant bone spear with both hands. The spear tilted from top to bottom. His right foot moved forward, and the tip of his foot pushed forward. An incomparably powerful aura burst forth. At this moment, it was as if Zhuowen and the dragon scale tyrant bone spear had become one. A muffled sound like thunder resounded from the void behind Zhuowen. A terrifying dragon head descended from the void and blocked in front of Zhuowen. Rumble! The dragon head and the flood dragon instantly tore at each other. The terrifying power caused the surrounding space to tremble faintly. There was actually the sound of glass shattering. Unfortunately, the flood dragon's power was ultimately much stronger than the dragon head. It actually shattered the dragon head and continued to dive toward Zhuowen with irresistible force. A cold light arrives first, then the spear strikes like a dragon. Subduing dragon style, strike for me. Zhuowen's spear momentum did not change. He suddenly swung the bone spear and immediately displayed the second move of the dragon scale tyrant bone spear, the subduing dragon style. Suddenly, a monstrous dragon roar resounded. A huge coiling dragon that was hundreds of meters long coiled around Zhuowen's body, forming an impenetrable defense. In the next second, the flood dragon arrived as expected. The coiling dragon and the flood dragon collided. The dragon's roar and the flood dragon's roar rang out continuously. In the end, the two roars shattered in a terrifying explosion. Ding! When the coiling dragon and the flood dragon were destroyed, Feng Yong instantly arrived. He swung the halberd in his hand, causing countless hurricanes to fly toward Zhuowen's face. Zhuowen laughed coldly. He held the bone spear horizontally and directly blocked the halberd's attack. Your injuries? Feeling the powerful force transmitted from the bone spear, Feng Yong frowned slightly. He actually felt that Zhuowen's injuries were much better than before. The smile on Zhuowen's face widened. He held the bone spear in his right hand and once again slapped the green coffin with his left hand. The crack on the green coffin lid widened by a little. Zhuowen had opened half of it, and an even more frightening pressure than before poured out in torrents. A pair of blood-red eyes suddenly appeared from the green coffin, and a strange aura slowly spread out. Feng Yong, who was in front of Zhuowen, also noticed the blood-red eyes that suddenly appeared from the green coffin. When he looked over, his body trembled and he was stunned on the spot. His eyes revealed a trace of confusion. On the high platform, when Grand Lily saw the pair of blood-red eyes in the green coffin, her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of lingering fear. Back when she was chasing after Zhuowen, she had forced Zhuowen to use these blood-red eyes. This pair of blood-red eyes was very dangerous. Even Granny Lily had almost fallen into the endless illusion of the blood-red eyes. If it wasn't for her firm will and powerful strength, she might have been killed by Zhuowen instead. The instant Feng Yong fell into the blood-red eyes, Zhuowen's spear changed direction and instantly pierced towards Feng Yong's forehead. If this attack hit, Feng Yong would definitely die. The instant the spear tip was about to reach Feng Yong's forehead, Feng Yong's eyes regained clarity and he saw the spear tip that was close at hand. Feng Yong roared angrily. He stomped his feet and retreated continuously. Unfortunately, the bone spear was like a maggot that followed closely behind Feng Yong. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. A ruthless light flashed in Feng Yong's eyes. He made a prompt decision and directly blocked in front of his forehead with his left hand. Puchi! A broken arm flew out and fresh blood splattered. Feng Yong's left arm was instantly broken. With his left arm delaying time, Feng Yong's body moved and he immediately dodged Zhuowen's fatal attack. Your reaction is quite fast. Unfortunately, you won't be able to take the next move. Feng Yong had lost an arm and his strength was greatly reduced. Now, he was no longer a match for Zhuowen. Therefore, Zhuowen was confident that this move could definitely take Feng Yong's life. Buzz! The invisible spear intent spread out. Zhuowen's body was like a spear and instantly shot out, rushing towards Feng Yong who was retreating continuously. At this moment, Feng Yong who was retreating had a sinister expression. The pain of losing an arm was not so easy to endure. Even though Feng Yong was strong, he still grimaced in pain. Zhuowen rushed over again. The bone spear suddenly shot out and pressed forward. This caused Feng Yong's expression to change greatly. He struck out with the halberd in his right hand, wanting to completely block Zhuowen's attack. Bang! Unfortunately, under the support of the bone spear with spear intent and Feng Yong's strength being greatly reduced due to losing an arm, Feng Yong's attack was extremely weak and the halberd was directly shattered. Puchi! The bone spear shot out again and Feng Yong's right arm was cut off at the shoulder. Fresh blood spurted out like a fountain. You little bastard. With both arms broken, Feng Yong's face was ashen. This was equivalent to being a cripple. No matter how high his cultivation was, without both arms, he could no longer do anything on the road of martial arts. After cutting off Feng Yong's right arm, Zhuowen's bone spear once again shot out towards Feng Yong's forehead. He planned to directly kill Feng Yong with this attack. I admit defeat. I forfeit. Stop it right now. Looking at the bone spear that shot out once again, Feng Yong's face, which was originally ashen, was filled with fear. Admit defeat? Forfeit? It's too late now. It's better for you to die. At the moment when Feng Yong shamelessly launched a sneak attack on him, Zhuowen had already sentenced Feng Yong to death. This Feng Yong must be killed by Zhuowen. Stop. Feng Yong has already admitted defeat and you still dare to kill him. Today, this general will cripple you, this bastard who despises the law. The moment Zhuowen made his move, a loud shout suddenly sounded from the edge of the arena. Chapter 740. The strongest in the group, Zhuowen's pupils shrank when he sensed the terrifying aura behind him. His eyes were filled with coldness. The Silver Dragon General had actually attacked him in public. This was no longer a matter of favoritism. Instead, the Silver Dragon General wanted to kill him from the very beginning. With a cold snort, Zhuowen's hand seals changed. 3 pairs of lightning wings sprouted from his back, and his speed soared to the limit. He arrived in front of Feng Yong in a flash. Zhuan grabbed Feng Yong's collar with his right hand. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a lightning shadow and retreated. Rumble! The moment he retreated, the place where Zhuan had been suddenly exploded, forming a huge crater that was dozens of feet wide. It was a terrifying sight. Zhuan's eyes were filled with coldness as he looked at the huge crater. The Silver Dragon General had really planned to be ruthless. Just this attack alone had used the full strength of a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm 9th Wheel. If Feng Yong had taken it head-on, he would have probably died. Zhuan, our Feng clan is not someone you can offend. Let me go immediately. Feng Yong only felt sullen. It was too humiliating to be held in Zhuan's hand. However, he did not dare to act rashly. With his arms broken, he was no match for Zhuan. If Zhuan wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Then did you think about letting me go when you attacked me? Zhuan snorted coldly. Feng Yong's expression froze, but he still retorted. You better think carefully. If you kill me, the Feng clan will not let you go. I have already crippled you. What's the difference between killing you and crippling you? Do you think that your Feng clan will let me go if I let you go? Zhuan retorted with a sneer. Then what do you want? Feng Yong was both shocked and furious. He said with some fear. Zhuan had even dared to kill Chao Yan. Feng Yong knew that Zhuan was completely capable of killing him. At this moment, there was a hint of submission in his voice. Zhuan no longer paid any attention to Feng Yong, who was still clamoring. His gaze focused on the Silver Dragon General, who was slowly walking out of the deep pit with a grave expression. Zhuan, you've got some guts. Feng Yong had already admitted defeat, yet you still attacked. A person like you who looks down on the law and ignores the rules is not qualified to participate in this ranking tournament. The Silver Dragon General also noticed that Feng Yong's life was in Zhuan's hands. His eyes hardened as he spoke in a cold voice. Defying the law? Ignoring the rules? The smile on Zhuan's face grew even wider. This Silver Dragon General was really distorting the truth and spouting nonsense. At the beginning, Feng Yong had taken advantage of his unpreparedness to launch a sneak attack on him, and even joined forces with Chao Yan to fight him. Could it be that this wasn't disregarding the rules? In the beginning, Feng Yong had not cared. Now that Zhuan had defeated Feng Yong, he had come out to meddle in other people's business. The Silver Dragon General's intention to side with Zhuan was too obvious. That's right. I'm presiding over the number 8 arena, so you have to listen to me. You ignored the rules and even used cruel methods. A person like you isn't qualified to be the strongest person in the number 8 arena group, the Silver Dragon General said righteously. I'm not qualified? Could it be that you think that this trash is qualified? As he spoke, Zhuan raised his right hand and pulled Feng Yong, who had a slightly narrowed expression, to the front as he spoke in a cold voice. Zhuan, you little bastard, why aren't you quickly releasing Feng Yong? Suddenly, a shocked and furious voice sounded out from the table. Feng Tian stood up with a bang, his gaze staring fixedly at Zhuan. He also did not expect that Feng Yong would actually lose miserably in the end. Moreover, both of his arms were even chopped off by Zhuan. Needless to say, Feng Yong would become a complete cripple in the future. The person with the strongest talent in their Feng family actually had both of his arms crippled in front of everyone's eyes. This was already indirectly slapping their Feng family's face. How could Feng Tian not be furious? Moreover, Feng Yong was Feng Tian's son. Blood was thicker than water. Now that Feng Yong was in such a miserable state, how could Feng Tian not be furious? Zhuan glanced indifferently at Feng Tian and said in a clear voice, You want me to release Feng Yong? Feng Tian's eyes were crimson red as he said coldly, That's right. Little bastard, you better release Feng Yong. Otherwise, your friends, family, and everyone related to you will all die in the future. As long as you release Feng Yong, I promise to leave you with a complete corpse. I won't let you die too miserably. As soon as Feng Tian said this, Zhuan's pupils constricted. Feng Tian's meaning was very simple and also very cruel. In other words, whether Zhuan released Feng Yong or not, Zhuan would die. If he released Feng Yong, his friends and family would not be implicated. If he did not release Feng Yong, he and all of his friends and family would die. Whether I release Feng Yong or not, I will die. Is there something wrong with your head? Since I'm going to die, then why should I release Feng Yong? Zhuan retorted sarcastically. This Feng Tian was so domineering. Whether he, Zhuan, released Feng Tian or not, Thuan would die. This was forcing him to kill Feng Yong. At this moment, Feng Yong also realized that Feng Tian's words were somewhat inappropriate. He hurriedly struggled and said, "Father, save me, save me. Yun, why aren't you letting him go? Don't force me to make a move." Looking at Feng Yong's appearance, Feng Tian's heart faintly ached, and he said coldly to Zhuan, "Pa, you also said that whether I release him or not, Yun will die. Since I, Tun, am going to die, why should I let Feng Yong go?" Zhuan sneered. As soon as these words were spoken, Feng Tian's face froze. He also realized that his words earlier were somewhat inappropriate. However, as the patriarch of the Feng family, Feng Tian naturally couldn't swallow his pride and change his words. Instead, he snorted coldly and said, "You have to think clearly. Could it be that you want your friends and family to be buried with you even if you die? So long as you release Feng Yong, I won't make a move against your friends and family." "Old bastard, before you ask me to release him, can you use your brain? With your current intelligence, it's already no different from a pig." Jun shook his head, and his gaze landed on Feng Yong as he said indifferently, "Feng Yong, remember, the person who killed you wasn't of my own volition. It was your father, Feng Tian, who forced me to kill you. Since I'm going to die regardless of whether I release you or not, so in my opinion, it's better to let you be buried with me." As he spoke up to hear, the mocking smile on the corners of Zhuowen's mouth became even denser. On the other hand, Feng Yong's face was filled with terror. He knew that Zhuan had made up his mind to kill him. "Don't kill me, I—" Before Feng Yong could finish his words, Zhuan exerted force with his right hand. Instantly, a crisp cracking sound could be heard. Following this, Feng Yong's head tilted to the side, and he actually stopped breathing. Bang! Zhuan tossed his right hand, and Feng Yong's corpse, which had died with his eyes open, flew out in a parabola shape before heavily smashing into the ground. Silence, the entire plaza was deathly silent. Only the sound of Feng Yong's corpse hitting the ground echoed endlessly throughout the plaza. The number one genius of the Feng family, Feng Yong, had died just like that. When the gazes of everyone in the plaza gathered on Zhuowen's figure, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. This Zhuan was too ruthless. Not only did he kill the number one genius of the Chao family, Chao Yan, but he even killed Feng Yong. This could no longer be described as daring and reckless. Not only were the people in the plaza stunned, but even Feng Tian was stunned. He never thought that Zhuan would actually dare to kill Feng Yong. On the high platform, Huangfu Wuji, Granny Baihe, and the others were also stunned. Zhuowen's final choice and method had also exceeded their expectations. On the martial stage, the Silver Dragon General was also stunned. He never thought that Zhuan would actually kill Feng Yong, and without the slightest hesitation at all. "You actually dare to kill Feng Yong in front of this general? You are courting death." The Silver Dragon General angrily roared, and an endless infernal aura erupted from his body. The Silver Dragon General turned into a bloody shadow that flew toward Zhuan at an extremely fast speed. Looking at the Silver Dragon General rushing towards him, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a cold light. He coldly said, "For a dead man, is it really worth it for you to attack me? Now that Feng Yong is dead, I am officially ranked in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor proclamation. Do you think that if you kill me, His Majesty the Azure Emperor will spare you?" As soon as these words came out, the originally aggressive Silver Dragon General suddenly stopped. He stood 5 meters away from Zhuan, a hesitant look on his face. Zhuowen's words weren't without reason. Feng Yong had already been thoroughly killed by him. Without a doubt, the strongest powerhouse on the 8th martial stage was Zhuan. Although he, the Silver Dragon General, was the one presiding over this martial stage, if he were to attack a genius that stood out from the group for no reason, what would the Azure Emperor think? If Feng Yong hadn't died, then he might have been able to obtain Feng Tian's praise. But now that Feng Yong had died in front of him, he feared that he would have to bear Feng Tian's wrath. Since this was the case, the Silver Dragon General had no reason to attack Zhuan. This boy's methods are ruthless and decisive, and his mind is clear and sharp. His future achievements will be limitless. As he thought of this, the Silver Dragon General slowly withdrew his murderous aura. He knew very well that not only was Zhuan strong and talented, but he was also very smart. This boy's future was limitless. If he, the Silver Dragon General, couldn't kill Zhuan today, then he would have to bear Zhuan's revenge in the future. However, even if he killed Zhuan, he was afraid that he wouldn't have a good ending. Therefore, the best choice for him now was to be a bystander and not meddle in other people's business. Can you announce the result of the 8th martial stage now? Zhuan asked faintly. The Silver Dragon General's eyes flickered as he announced loudly, 8th martial stage, Zhuan wins. As he said that, the Silver Dragon General suddenly looked at Lu Long below the stage. He said indifferently, "It's just you and Zhuan now. The two of you will fight to determine the strongest person in the group." Lu Long's face stiffened, and he hurriedly shook his head and forfeited. What a joke! Zhuan had even killed Chao Yan and Feng Yong. He had not even reached the limits of the Seven-Wheel King realm, so he would be sending himself to death if he went up. As a result, Lu Long admitted defeat very straightforwardly. The Silver Dragon General was not too surprised by Lu Long's admission of defeat. After witnessing Zhuowen's terrifying strength and ruthless methods, no one would be interested in fighting him at all. Since that's the case, the winner of the 8th martial stage is Zhuowen, the Silver Dragon General announced loudly. At the same time, the countless people in the surroundings were in an uproar. They stared at Zhuan in a daze as excitement filled their faces. Chapter 741. On the floating platform creek. Feng Tian clenched his fists tightly as he stared fixedly at Zhuan, who was on the arena below. His expression was savage, and he wished for nothing more than to tear Zhuan into pieces. However, he knew that he couldn't make a move now because Lu Hantian's cold and indifferent gaze was staring fixedly at him from the other side of the table. Feng Tian knew that if he made a move, Lu Hantian would definitely come out to stop him. His strength was on par with Chao Ji, so he was definitely not a match for Lu Hantian. Zhuan. Feng Tian fiercely muttered Zhuowen's name as he took a deep breath and sat back down on the table while his gaze flickered. Zhuan smoothly emerged from the 8th arena and walked towards the high platform under the lead of a soldier. He arrived at the place where Huangfu Wudao and the other 4 geniuses were. Zhuan, I never imagined that your strength would be so formidable. Even Chao Yan and Feng Yong were defeated by you. Guisheng laughed loudly as he arrived near the 5 geniuses. He arrived before Zhuan and sized up Zhuan with dense shock in the depths of his eyes. He still remembered that Zhuan was utterly powerless against him when they were in Muqing County. Now, not only had Zhuowen's cultivation caught up to his, even Chao Yan and Feng Yong, 2 geniuses in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings, had been defeated. The speed of Zhuowen's improvement had truly exceeded Guisheng's expectations. Originally, Guisheng thought that his improvement was already fast enough. However, he paled in comparison to Zhuowen. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled into a smile as he looked at Guisheng and said, "Brother Gua is too modest. Your strength is probably stronger than mine. At the very least, I'm unable to see through you now." Zhuowen was speaking the truth. He really couldn't see through Guisheng. There was only one explanation for this situation, and that was that Guisheng's cultivation was above Zhuowen's. 3 months ago, Guisheng had already reached the peak of the ultimate 7-wheel emperor stage and could easily defeat Feng Yong. Now that 3 months had passed, with Guisheng's talent, Zhuowen didn't believe that Guisheng hadn't made any breakthroughs. In other words, Guisheng was very likely an ultimate 8-wheel emperor stage expert. Humph! Little bastard, you were lucky to meet Chao Yan and Feng Yong in the group stage. If you had met me, I would have made you suffer an incomparably miserable end. An ear-piercing voice sounded out, causing Zhuowen's eyes to turn cold. He turned to look at the lofty Huangfu Wuji and lightly said, "His Highness the Second Prince is truly unparalleled in this world. Someone as insignificant as me can be killed with a flip of his hand. However, in the Peach Blossom origin diagram, His Highness the Second Prince was at the peak of the ultimate 7-wheel Emperor stage and I was only at the peak of the ultimate 6-wheel Emperor stage. There was a difference of an entire realm between us. At that time, His Highness the Second Prince threatened to kill me, but now, I seem to be standing here perfectly fine. As he spoke to her, Nguyen no longer spoke. Instead, he stared at Huangfu Wuji with a mocking gaze. Zhuowen's words seemed to be flattering Huangfu Wuji, but in reality, he was saying that Huangfu Wuji was clearly stronger than Zhuowen, yet he still couldn't kill Zhuowen. He was mocking Huangfu Wuji for being incompetent. You have a sharp tongue and a glib tongue. Jing, you're only good at talking now. Once we truly fight, I'm afraid you'll truly regret it. Huangfu Wuji's eyes narrowed. Before he could open his mouth to refute, Grand Lily suddenly opened her mouth. Her cold voice was particularly ear-piercing to Zhuowen's ears. You're just a slut that I'm about to divorce, yet you dare to spout such nonsense in front of me? I'll give you one word. Fuck off. Zhuowen didn't even look at Grand Lily as he coldly retorted. Towards Grand Lily, Nguyen could be considered to have a deep-seated hatred. This woman had the heart of a snake and scorpion. Back in the Peach Blossom origin diagram, she had wanted to kill him. How could Zhuowen possibly have a good attitude towards this woman? What did you say? Grand Lily was so angry that her body trembled. A terrifying aura gushed out from her body, pressuring Zhuowen. Everyone, let's not harm each other. Now that we've all successfully entered the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list, we can be considered brothers and sisters. Let's not fight and kill, okay? At the instant that Grand Lily released her terrifying aura, an even more overbearing aura swept out, directly suppressing Grand Lily's aura. Soon after, a rather gentle voice sounded out. Grand Lily's beautiful face slightly changed. She turned her head and saw a trace of a gentle smile on Murong Zhan's face. Grand Lily's eyes revealed a trace of dread. She coldly snorted and fiercely glared at Zhuowen before slowly restraining her aura. It wasn't only because of Murong Zhan, but also because this was the Golden Imperial Palace. Private fights were not allowed. Zhuowen glanced at the beaming Murong Zhan in astonishment. He nodded his head and shifted his attention to the remaining 4 arenas below. Time passed by minute by minute. The strongest of the 4 arenas had already been filtered out. Arena number 2 was Qing Yan, arena number 5 was Qing Ming, arena number 7 was Zhu Bai, and arena number 9 was the Lightless Monk. Qing Yan, Qing Ming, and Zhu Bai were originally in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list. Hence, one wasn't surprised that they were the strongest of their arenas. What really surprised Zhuowen was the Lightless Monk in arena number 9. The final battle in arena number 9 was naturally between LV Yitao and the Lightless Monk. LV Yitao was ranked 15th on the Azure Emperor list, while the Lightless Monk was ranked 14th. Their rankings were close. Originally, everyone thought that this battle would be a stalemate. However, in the end, LV Yitao was defeated by the Lightless Monk in one move and was directly eliminated from the arena. Although LV Yitao's strength was much weaker than Zhuowen's, he had been extremely diligent in his cultivation for the past 3 months. His cultivation had also reached the peak of the ultimate 6-wheel Emperor realm. Arena number 9 originally didn't have any geniuses in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list, so LV Yitao's chances of standing out were very high. However, the Lightless Monk suddenly appeared halfway and displayed his terrifying strength, directly eliminating LV Yitao. This Lightless Monk's strength is at least at the ultimate 7-wheel Emperor realm. Looking at the Lightless Monk behind Qing Yan, Qing Ming, and Zhu Bai, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. The Lightless Monk's strength had surprised him. At this point, the results of all 10 arenas had been announced. This also meant that the new top 10 of the Azure Emperor list had appeared in front of everyone. On the table, the Azure Emperor slowly stood up with a gentle smile on his face. He said in a clear voice, "Everyone has seen it. The top 10 of the Azure Emperor list have been selected. They are Huangfu Wudao, Murong Zhan, Grand Baihe, Qing Yan, Qing Ming, Zhu Bai, Huangfu Wuji, Guosheng, Zhuowen, and the Lightless Monk. First, This emperor would like to congratulate the 10 of you." When the Azure Emperor said this, everyone below the arena revealed excited expressions. The top 10 of the Azure Emperor list hadn't changed much. The only change was that Chao Yan, who was ranked 10th, and Feng Yong, who was ranked 8th, had been eliminated. Zhuowen and the Lightless Monk had been newly promoted. Of course, in this arena battle, the one who had stunned everyone the most was still Zhuowen on the 8th arena. After all, Chao Yan and Feng Yong had both been defeated by Jun. From this, it could be seen that Zhuowen's strength had far exceeded everyone's expectations. Since the top 10 of the Azure Emperor list have been selected, the next step will be the top 5. Everyone should be aware of the importance of the top 5 of the Azure Emperor list. As the Azure Emperor spoke to hear, he deliberately paused. As for the 10 geniuses in front of the high platform, their eyes shined with a strange light. Even Huangfu Wudao's eyelids couldn't help but twitch, revealing the restlessness in his heart. This time, the top 5 of the Azure Emperor list would have the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination of the Excellent Divine Institute. This was a great opportunity. To the Azure Xian Empire, the Excellent Divine Institute was a colossal existence. Throughout the entire Eastern lands, the Excellent Divine Institute was an illustrious existence. Even the Blue Dragon Hall couldn't ignore its existence. If they could enter such a colossal power, it would undoubtedly be like reaching the heavens in a single bound. Just the huge amount of resources and teachers in the Excellent Divine Institute was enough to allow a cultivator to advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. Even the arrogant first prince, Huangfu Wudao, had a blind pursuit of the Excellent Divine Institute. He also desired to enter the Excellent Divine Institute. The Excellent Divine Institute. Among the 10, Zhuowen's eyes shone with a dazzling light. He couldn't help but feel excited. The Excellent Divine Institute was the place of his dreams that he had been looking forward to for a long time. In the Excellent Divine Institute, not only did it have the complete ice-fire sacred symbol, but it also had Mu Chenxue, whom he yearned for day and night. He, Zhuowen, had to enter the Excellent Divine Institute no matter what. This emperor will not speak any more nonsense. The battle for the top 5 will begin now. As long as you enter the top 5, you will have the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination of the Excellent Divine Institute. Speaking to hear, the Azure Emperor waved his sleeves. Suddenly, countless green lights descended from the sky and landed in the middle of the arena. Rumble! As the green lights descended, the 10 arenas in the middle of the arena emitted a strange green light. Following which, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, they transformed into a gigantic green arena that was a few hundred feet tall. This huge cyan fighting ring floated quietly in the air above the square, giving people a sense of awe as they looked up at it from afar. The 10 geniuses on the high platform all focused their gazes on the gigantic arena floating in the air with different expressions on their faces. This is the floating arena, the stage for the 10 of you. The rules are simple. 2-on-2 battles, survival of the fittest. However, in the battle for the top 5, you cannot kill. If anyone wants to kill, then don't blame this emperor for being impolite. Speaking to hear, the Azure Emperor's tone became much more serious. The top 10 geniuses of the Azure Mystic Empire had already been chosen. They represented the highest standards of the Azure Mystic Empire. If they were to die, it would undoubtedly be a huge loss. Zhuowen and the rest naturally knew what the Azure Emperor was thinking. They all nodded their heads without any objections. Now, draw lots to choose your opponent. Finishing his words, the Azure Emperor tossed his right hand and 10 green bamboo sticks floated in the air. I'll go first. Huangfu Wudao stretched out his right hand, and a suction force swept out from his palm. Suddenly, the 10 bamboo sticks in the air were sucked into his palm. With Huangfu Wudao taking the lead, the other 9 geniuses also drew their bamboo sticks. Zhuowen was no exception. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.